Hi, I'm Trevor, and welcome to Catching Up on Cinema. If you aren't familiar with the program, Catching Up on Cinema is a film analysis podcast wherein we introduce each other to films, expand our cinematic horizons, and, in essence, catch up on our cinema. So, it is the month of September 2021, and is once again that time of the month wherein we do our very special Tales from the Shelf episode. And in joining me in this endeavor, I have my good buddy Brad from the Cinema Speak podcast. How's it going, Brad?
It's going great. Glad to be here pulling off some more movies from the good old shelf and ready to talk about them and just, show them off to everybody listening and watching at home.
Okay, fantastic. Glad to hear it. I'm sorry, Brad. I have to fight the urge to call you B-Rad, like, virtually every time I say your name.
Hey, that's all right, man. That's okay. I get it all the time.
I'm glad, because that is a phenomenal nickname. I'm quite jealous of that.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
Our theme for this month's Tales from the Shelf just happens to be a selection of sequels. So this month here at Catching Up on Cinema, September 2021, is our special masterclass month. In this case, we're going to be doing a complete, comprehensive overview of the Indiana Jones film franchise. And in the recording of our most recent episode, that would be Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, I remarked quite heavily about the concept of number two in a film franchise and the unique space that chapter in any given story occupies, because it's no mystery that there are a shocking number of very high quality second entries in film series out there. Like we have The Godfather Part 2, we have The Empire Strikes Back. Some would say Paddington 2 is one of the best sequels and films ever made. I haven't seen it myself, but my God, maybe some of the most glowing of reviews I have ever read for a film. But yeah, I just remarked during the recording of that episode that number two is a really interesting space for a chapter of a film franchise, because at that point in the franchise history, there's literally only one chapter that preceded it, which means that all of the tropes, the expected elements of the greater film series have yet to be firmly established. Like they're there. Like some of, like, say for instance, Indiana Jones, his fear of snakes. That's a thing that was in there from chapter one and carried over into every subsequent film. But it's something that they easily could have forgotten about or just nudged off to the side, but that ended up being a recurring element. But point is, number two is it offers you limitless possibilities. Like everything is open to you. You can choose to be entirely faithful to what came before, or you can throw all that shit right out the window and begin anew. So today we're going to be talking not necessarily about sequels in general, but more specifically the second chapter in film series. So I've been rambling for quite some time. Therefore, it is about that time of the day wherein I throw Brad under the bus and ask him to make his first pick of the day.
Real quick, I don't want to derail this already, but I think I'm going to have to, because I got to bring this up, and I don't know what other episode would be good to do this. We got to talk. We're talking Tales from the Shelf, or give me a Tales from the Shelf. Give me a
Tales from the Shelf.
Yep, exactly. Now, let's talk about the actual shelf here. Let's talk about where you put a sequel in your collection, because I'm assuming you generally order your collection alphabetically. Let's start there. Is your collection alphabetical for the most part?
Yes.
Okay. Because if it wasn't, then we're going to be here all night. So thank goodness we got that down. Now, let's just throw this. I'm not going to bring this out as my first pick, but this is a good example. And I've got another example too. But let's look at this one. The Lost World. Now, I've got the individual Blu-ray here. I don't have a set. Where would you put this? Would you put it with all the other Jurassic Parks, or would you put it under L? What's your answer, sir?
Now, see, in my case, and this is me personally.
Yeah.
I'm not speaking for all film collectors out there. You can see I have quite a substantial collection. That's the PlayStation shelf. That's the movie shelf. I'm not speaking for all collectors out there, but in my case, yes, I would put that after Jurassic Park, because I know that they are part of the same franchise, and therefore there's connective tissue there. That's my logic backing that.
I don't feel so good.
Call dropped. I was like, Brad, don't leave me hanging here, bud. Be rad.
I definitely go by the classic rule. For me, if it's on the spine, that's where it goes in line.
Oh,
so
I like that line. By the way.
So for me, Lost World is far away from the other Jurassic Parks. It does go under L. Now, I will say, I'm trying to think of a good example of this. I guess maybe so. Like, here's a good example: the Oceans trilogy. Now, the Oceans trilogy, or actually quadrilogy, if we're going to include all the films. Technically, if we're going hard, straight alphabetization, I organize alphanumerically, so numbers would come before letters. So technically, Ocean's 8 would go before Ocean's 11, because Ocean's 8 has the number 8, while as all the other ones have, they're spelled out in words. So it would technically go Ocean's 8, Ocean's 11, Ocean's 13, Ocean's 12. Now, in that case, because everything falls under Oceans, I would probably put them in their sequential order. Luckily, I have Ocean's 8 on 4K, so it's not even near the other ones, so we're all good there. But, if it's a far enough gap, like the Lost World, I'm putting it under L. That's me. I mean, you do you, man. I'm joking when I said it made me sick, but that's just how I do it.
Brad is just trying desperately to hold it together, but you can't see it. It's just out of frame. His knee is just like he's about to throw a shit fit.
Oh, yeah, I mean, even a better example, or actually better or worse, is the Road Warrior. Now, the Road Warrior, I don't remember which country it was released as in which, but in some countries it was released as the Road Warrior. I think in the U.S., I think that was a working. Whereas, like, overseas, it was Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior. So where do you put this bad boy? This is a real pickle. This one's tough for me. And again, I look at this Blu-ray. If it's on the spine, it's where it goes in line. I'm putting this one under R, which this one, I did lose some sleep over this one because sometimes I check IMDb. Usually IMDb, it's a good go-to. But I think on IMDb, at least when I looked, it was Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior. So this one kept me up at night. This is a tough one. I'm not gonna fault anybody for putting this one under M. Trust me.
Well, maybe you should do a little bit of research. Maybe there's like an Australian Blu-ray or a super duper special edition that has some worthwhile features to it of Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior, that you can adorn your shelf with. Because I mean, it's a good enough movie to seek out a special edition of.
Well, and it is coming out on 4K. So I didn't even think to check what the I gotta look into that because I think they are releasing a full collection, like all 4 films on 4K together. I might have to just grab that and then I can sleep at night. Just put it under M. We're good.
Yeah, actually, that's the tiebreaker kind of. It's like if it's all in one box, then it's like it takes the decision making out of your hands. It's like it's in the box.
Yep. Okay, cool. I was just curious. We can maybe really get into some minutia some other time because I've got some questions I could ask you. How we could really hash it out.
Absolutely. I'd love to do that sometime, Brad.
But okay, so should I lead it off with something here?
Yeah, go ahead. What's your first number 2?
All right, I'm gonna go with this one because I think it kind of exemplifies what you were talking about, where the door is open, like limitless possibilities, essentially. Because I think this sequel, completely different in style and tone from the original, and they did kind of set up the hallmark of the franchise being that like a director took it on in their own way with each entry, and that is the Mission Impossible franchise. Specifically, John Woo's Mission Impossible 2, which I will say is definitely my least favorite of the franchise, which is unfortunate. I've not seen many John Woo movies. I've seen Face Off, Mission Impossible 2. trying to. What are some of? I've never seen
Broken
Hard
Arrow?
Boiled.
Have you seen Broken Arrow?
I've never seen Broken Arrow, so I don't know John
How about
Woo
Wind
much.
Wind Talkers? Have you seen
I have
Wind
seen
Talkers?
that one.
That's not a good one, but,
I've
but
seen-
it's a John Woo movie.
I've seen more of his duds than I've seen his good ones. But
Yeah.
what I love about Mission Impossible 2, and I don't love this film by any means. In fact, whenever there's a new Mission Impossible movie, I get the urge to watch them all over again, and I almost always skip over Mission Impossible 2 because I'm just not feeling it. It's just, but what I love about it and what I respect about it is they did set the standard for each film, kind of, letting the director put their own spin on it, give it their own style, because, the first Mission Impossible, definitely it does feel like a Brian De Palma movie. Brian De Palma directing a big action blockbuster, but it's got many of his traits. And, they could have brought in some jobber. They could have brought in Brett Ratner. I mean, he was probably around at this time, right? Yeah, they could have brought in Brett Ratner and just said, hey, just kind of do the, Brian De Palma, just do what he did. It just, it won't be probably as good. Just, kind of make it the same. But they said, no, let's give it to John Woo. And I'm sure when they gave it to him, they knew he was going to woo it up. Like, I mean, there's no way they're going to be like, hey, John Woo, can you just redo what Brian De Palma did? No. So the fact that they did that, and that essentially, until the most recent two, giving it to a new director every time and having them put their own spin on it, because 100% number 3 feels like a J.J. Abrams film. And, from 3 on, they aren't quite as differentiated because they're all produced by Bad Robot at that point. But, I still feel like number 4, you can tell, like, the Brad Bird-isms, the McQuarrie-isms in 5 and 6. So that's one of my favorite things about the franchise, and that maybe wouldn't have happened if it hadn't been for number 2. So even though I'm not a huge Mission Impossible 2 fan, although I do kind of dig the Limp Bizkit song in it. That's not too bad, actually.
No, Brad, you and I have talked about this probably off air a few times, but yeah, that always has been one of the more admirable aspects of the Mission Impossible franchise, is that each chapter has its own identity, and a lot of that comes straight down to like director quirks. Because you're absolutely right, that first one has a lot of those like De Palma / like Hitchcockian like high tension set pieces. Man, I've seen that movie way too many fucking times.
It's so good though. I always get the urge to like, I kind of want to watch it now, but I'm like, I know I'm gonna want to watch it when the new one comes out. So I'm like, man, I gotta wait until the new Mission Impossible comes out to rewatch and 1, 3, 5, 4, 5, and 6. But
yeah, no, I think I've done exactly that myself. Like I skipped chapter 2 because frankly I do think it is the weakest chapter in the series. I do agree with you wholeheartedly that the Christopher McQuarrie films are where it starts to become a little bit more homogenized, where things feel a little bit more crystallized in terms of tone and content. A lot of that I want to say is like I suspect that guy's just a puppet for Tom Cruise, honestly.
yeah.
It's like he's just an enabler of Tom Cruise, because Jack Reacher is very much stroking Tom Cruise's ego, and Mission Impossible 5 and 6, while both very, very good films, are a little bit too similar to each other in ways that they're not bad. Like, I actually really enjoy both of those quite a bit. I think they're exceptional, even by that franchise's standards, but it's just a little bit of a letdown knowing that, like, every time at bat, this series has gave us something totally different.
Yeah.
But yeah, the second one is a strange beast, man, because not only do you get the Woo-isms, it's also, I think, a year 2000 movie, and it feels it.
Like, I mean, there's a Limp Bizkit theme song. I mean, come on.
Yeah, and folks at home, if you didn't catch that, there is a Limp Bizkit theme song, and like the wardrobe, the costuming, and the hair, and Woo's indulgences in terms of like slow motion, and it very much feels like the year 2000 in bottle form, in a similar way to how those Charlie's Angels films do, where it's like, oh no, like this was a look and a feel that just not exactly all that fun to come back to.
Yeah.
There's a reason those movies were relentlessly parodied in that era. It's because they were deserving of it. But yeah, Mission Impossible 2 is not good. Like it's really kind of a shame because John Woo is a fantastic director. It's maybe been a minute since he's given his best showings. But in the year 2000, I think his American resume was pretty strong. I think Paycheck came after that.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And that movie has fuck all going for it, honestly. It's like, isn't that the movie where Ben Affleck fights Two-Face with a staff? And it's like, yeah, I think that was that movie. And
Yeah.
I think like one of the only things I was somewhat excited about it when I saw it was that John Powell did the soundtrack for it, much as he did the soundtrack for Face Off, another John Woo movie, and he was fantastic for that movie. But the Paycheck soundtrack and the film itself, just like, get out of here. It's just completely unmemorable is the problem.
Yeah.
So like John Woo had yet to like, his wave had yet to crest in the year 2000. So I think expectations were very high. And, you know, we had just been bombarded with things like The Matrix kind of exploded onto screens just, the year before. So there was a standard for which the action needed to live up to that's, like, not necessarily John Woo's brand, but I'm sure he was pressured to, like, make it more like that. Mm-hmm. More leather. Like, more slow motion.
Yeah.
But wheel kicks on the beach. That's what that movie is.
Yeah.
Slow motion wheel kicks on the beach.
Yeah. Yeah. Even Tom Cruise's sunglasses he wears are very Matrix-esque, if I'm remembering right.
Yeah, and just the way the Ethan Hunt character is framed in that movie. It's like everything is sexified, where it's like he's got the long flowing hair and everybody has like an extra layer of makeup on them. Everybody has that like Michael Bay sweaty sheen on them, where it's like, these don't look like people. Every shot of this movie feels like a commercial or something. And the Ethan Hunt character isn't given as much. They don't even attempt to give him any sort of dimensionality like they would do in number 3 and onward. And even that first chapter, he's a very complex character. Like he is asked to do quite a few very strange, taxing things in terms of like the emotional strain on the character and whatnot. And the second one, he's basically a superhero, and continues to be like onward in the franchise. But in the second one, it's like not only is he a superhero, he's meant to like look good from end to end. So it's just a weirdly outdated relic of the past.
Even just like the whole like cliff climbing opening, like it's cool, but it's like so cheesy and just like, you know, kind of just showing off. There's no real reason for it.
Am I misremembering, or was Anthony Hopkins collecting a paycheck on that one?
Is he in that one? I can't remember.
I think he gives the mission briefing. Like it was one of those things where they probably filmed it in his bathroom and then like green screened him into the final film or something. I seem to remember that. But like I said, it's been a minute since I watched it because I tend to skip it when I revisit, you know, the older films in the series.
Yeah, I can't remember. He's not listed in the main cast on the back, but he might be in it. Yeah. I just remember the exploding sunglasses when he throws them at
Yeah, that's right. The sunglasses serve as this mission will self-destruct in that one.
Yeah.
And yeah, he has to throw it like directly into the camera.
Classic.
Yeah. What's the status on the next one, by the way?
They just delayed it along with the Top Gun.
Fuck.
Did you hear? Did you know Top Gun about getting delayed? Did you hear about that?
So last time I was in the theater was because of you and your show, the Cinema Speak podcast. Yeah. Brad had me on to review Snake Eyes, which received Snake Eyes in terms of star ratings.
Yep.
Yeah, and they had a trailer for Top Gun Maverick, which was far and away the best part of my theater experience. I don't remember what date was given in that trailer, but at the time, I assumed everything was still on track.
I believe when we saw Snake Eyes, it was still set to be released like in December of this year. It has now been delayed to summer of next year. And that was when Mission Impossible 7 was supposed to come out. So now Mission Impossible 7, I believe, is in December of next year. So they both got pushed back.
God damn, Tom Cruise is gonna have a fucking aneurysm.
Yeah, I think he just wants, because like he's trying to trick people. Like he's gonna push the movie back so much he'll be like 70 years old, and the movie will come out, and people will forget that these were filmed like 10 years ago, and they'll be like, "Man, this guy Tom Cruise, look how good he looks for being 70. Wow."
Jesus. Yeah, there's been a lot of delays lately. I'm still fingers crossed for No Time to Die. And as far as I know, speaking of Indiana Jones, I think Harrison Ford incurred yet another onset injury for Indiana Jones 5.
Yeah.
But I'm glad we're getting another Mission Impossible movie, because as long as they're good, I'll keep showing up. And 6 was really incredible. Like for the 6th chapter in a franchise, was not expecting it to be as good as it was. It was phenomenal in a lot of ways. It was a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
So yeah, more of that, please. But
Mission Impossible 7 already gave us the best content from the year 2020. I think it was 2020. Tom Cruise's COVID rant, which was
you still have that on the soundboard.
Oh yeah, still got those clips on there. Yeah, he's just classic. Just one of the highlights of a terrible year for sure.
I mean, if anyone is making a documentary about the pandemic film industry or something, that's going to be the highlight of it.
Oh, yeah.
It'll have a whole chapter. Like, it'll be a multi-part Netflix documentary, and a whole episode will be devoted to
I think just the title of the whole series should be called "We Are Not Shutting This Movie Down Ever."
Actually, yeah, that could be the title for the entire documentary.
Yeah, classic.
We will not go quietly into the night. We will make Mission Impossible 7. Will not go down without a fight. Whitmore speech, Mission Impossible edition. But yeah, really, really solid pick for your number 2, Brad, because that really is a spectacular example of a sequel that kind of looks at what the first one did and says, yeah, we're not going to do any of that.
Yeah.
Like, we're not going to do any of that. Like, we're going to adhere to the tropes from the television series, like this mission will self-destruct, and we're going to have the same protagonist.
Oh yeah.
But beyond that, stylistically, doesn't look at all like the De Palma film. By the way, the train sequence in that De Palma film, money. Still looks amazing. Looks amazing. And Danny Elfman's score for that one is underrated. I'll just say that much. All the music for like all the tension scenes, like doing the hanging from the ceiling into the vault, and the train sequence in particular is fucking incredible.
Yeah.
When the Mission Impossible theme kicks in at the end of the chase, the train tunnel sequence. Yeah, that is cinema. God damn it!
That's enough. You're gonna make me want to watch it too soon.
Yeah,
I got another year on this. Come on, I gotta sit for another year.
Yeah, you got a reprieve.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess it falls to me to pick my number 2, and it would not be a Trevor pick if I didn't cheat on my own show. Ooh. And Brad, you are welcome to cheat as well. So this is going to be a multi-pick.
Okay.
But what this is an example of a franchise that began anew, like found unexpected new life, beginning with its second chapter. So I have 2 examples here. So basically what I'm saying, Brad, is if you have any picks that like fall into a category, feel free to tackle them all at once if you want to be efficient. So these picks are both martial arts films because, again, my fucking show, and that's what I tend to talk about. So I have here Bloodsport 2, The Next Kumite, and Undisputed 2, Last Man Standing, both on the dreaded DVD format, which, folks at home, if you're not aware, Brad is not a big fan of. So both of these films are, of course, number 2s, and they are both direct-to-video as well. So Bloodsport is, of course, a sequel to the original Jean-Claude Van Damme Bloodsport, a canon film, by the way. And Bloodsport 2 would begin an entire sub-franchise of Bloodsport films. So the first film was made in isolation in 1988. Famously, as far as I know, it was shelved for like years. Like the Canon Film Group shot it, and apparently Van Damme was given quite a bit of creative license. Like he was allowed into the editing room, and it kind of became his baby. But it infamously just was not released for a few years. So it just kind of sat on a shelf. And it's since gone on to be like one of Van Damme's signature films. Bloodsport 2 would be headlined by one Daniel Bernhardt, who is now part of the 8711 action team, aka the people who have done the stunt work for like Atomic Blonde and the John Wick franchise. And indeed, the director of the John Wick films is in this, Chad Stahelski. He's like the second to last fight at the end of the film. And there are 3 direct-to-video Bloodsport films, all headlined by Daniel Bernhardt. And the 4th one is basically softcore porn, so I have watched that exactly one time, and then I was just like, yeah, I don't need this. Like, I don't need mid-90s martial arts softcore porn. It's not really my jam. But 2 and 3 are quite exceptional, actually. By direct-to-video martial arts movie standards, they're a fun time. And it's kind of remarkable that it's like they kind of created an entire unexpected franchise out of the Bloodsport name. Like, Van Damme has no connection to the films after the first one. Mm-hmm. All of them have essentially the same fucking plot. Third one has John Rhys Davies, by the way. Speaking of Indiana Jones, I guess he's the villain. All he does is sit in a balcony and say, "Hit him!" He just keeps belching out the words "hit him" or "kill him," and so we just like we'll show like fight, cut to John Rhys Davies going "kill him," and that's about it for his contribution to the film. But these are a fun time. The quality of the martial arts, I would argue, is actually better than the first Bloodsport film, with the exception of the 4th one, because that one's just trash, all like top to bottom, just straight up rubbish. But 2 and 3 are actually quite good. And JJ Loco Perry also is in the 3rd one. He is also, I think, joined the 8711 team. So we have these guys who were doing direct-to-video martial arts films in the 90s, who are now like the captains of the stunt world. Like they're kind of the top tier talent when it comes to action design in the year 2021. And so if you want to see their humble beginnings, direct-to-video schlock like this.
Yeah. Everybody's got to get their start somewhere.
Yeah, and I stand by Bloodsport 2. It basically is just a retread of the first one, although it has a terrible, absolutely horrendous framing device for the narrative. So the 2nd and the 3rd one have this storytelling element where it's like, we can't just have go have a white guy go do a tournament in Asia. We can't have a white guy go beat some ass in Asia. It's like, no, we have to have a reason for that. So it's like, I think the 2nd one, it's like a classroom full of kids that somebody's telling the story of the white guy who beats ass in Asia. And like all the child actors are fucking terrible. Oof. And then the 3rd one has Daniel Bernhardt like telling the story about how he beat ass in India to his kid. So he's like, "Son, we're going to go camping, and I'm going to tell you the tale of me beating all sorts of ass in India while I show you that I can perform magic tricks with my hands, such as create fire by grabbing leaves." Like, oh yeah, and he has a funny accent. So whenever he says his son's name, it's very similar to Arnold Schwarzenegger. Don't give Arnie J names, because like Jingle All the Way, Chimey. It comes out CH.
Oh yeah,
Chimey, Chasen. So Chasen, I'm going to make a fire with my hands. Chasen.
Yeah, they didn't think that one through. No.
Yeah, but it's like, do we really need this framing device? It's like, I am here to watch people beat ass in Asia. Mm-hmm. Like, can we not just do that for 85 minutes and call it good? It's like, no, we need to pad it out with 20 minutes of Daniel Bernhardt lighting fires with his hands while talking to his son, whose name he can't pronounce. But yeah, the actual action component of Bloodsport 2 and 3, pretty solid. It's a fun time. The first time I ever saw Bloodsport 2 and 3, not 4, 2 and 3 I saw via like Stars or Encore, like just in the middle of the fucking afternoon or something. It was just like we gotta fill out the schedule on Stars or something. And I was like, Bloodsport 2? I love Bloodsport. I didn't know these existed. So I took it upon myself to pick up the DVDs a long time ago, like I think through eBay or something. But really fun, especially now that I know, now that I can like recognize so many of the stunt players in these older movies, where it's like, wow, those guys went on to be somebodies. Like Daniel Bernhardt, if you don't recognize him, Brad, like he's been killed by some of Hollywood's biggest stars just within the past few years. Like he gets killed by the little girl in Logan. He was on the set of Creed 2 as a choreographer. He was one of the primary agents in The Matrix Reloaded. He was the one that was on the truck fight with Lawrence Fishburne. And he was also one of the toughest henchmen in the first John Wick. Like you have seen him before. Oh yeah, and he's the most prominent henchman in Atomic Blonde. Okay. He's kind of the jobber to the star. But also in addition to that, I have a very similar film. This would be Undisputed 2, Last Man Standing. And this was from the mid-2000s. This actually came out when I was in college, and I actually saw a commercial for it. I think, Brad, tell me this cover doesn't look like it was advertised on the Spike network.
Oh, yeah, it looks like it was produced by it. I mean...
Yeah.
TV for men.
It looks right at home on the on Spike or like TNN or something. I saw a commercial for it, and much like a lot of martial arts fans out there, all it took was what the kids at home call the Guyver kick. So if you Google Guyver kick, you'll find a GIF or a video clip of Scott Adkins, my favorite guy, doing a very particular leaping kick that was handed down to him. I forget from which Japanese stunt player, but it's originally from a movie called Guyver Dark Hero. And he inherited it from that stunt player, and it's now become one of his signature moves. This movie served as my personal introduction to Scott Adkins. I had seen him previously in Danny the Dog / Unleashed, the Jet Li film. He's one of the people in the swimming pool fight. He does a backflip and has frosted tips, and that's about it in terms of his contribution to that film. But technically, that was probably the first time I saw him. But this film is actually headlined by Michael Jai White, and is a sequel. I can't remember. I want to say it was originally a Walter Hill production, the original Undisputed. The first Undisputed was Ving Rhames and Wesley Snipes in a prison boxing match. And it was kind of a loose parallel to like what was going on with Mike Tyson in the mid 90s. So he infamously had his prison stint at a certain point in his career. And so the Ving Rhames character is basically supposed to be the Tyson analog, where he's the heavyweight champion of the world, but then he gets incarcerated, and that just so happens that prison has a boxing champion, that the promoters decide to extend his boxing career to his tenure in prison. So they arrange like a pay-per-view event broadcast from the prison between a legitimate heavyweight champion and the prison boxing champion. It's pretty solid film. It's actually a lot of fun, and it has a few things to say about the the sporting landscape and just the natures of prisons and whatnot. But this movie doesn't have nearly as much to say. But in terms of martial arts spectacle, it's an Isaac Florentine production. He's an Israeli director that worked on a lot of the Power Rangers series, and he has an extensive martial arts background. Scott Adkins was his muse through like the mid 2000s up until like 2010 or so. So they've worked together many times over the years, but this was like one of the biggest highlights early in his career for his talents as a screen performer. And this would go on. This would serve as the pivot point for the franchise, where originally, like I said, Ving Rhames is technically supposed to be the same character as Michael Jai White, but they swapped him out. The Michael Jai White character recedes into the background and becomes a non-element, that he's no longer mentioned after the second film. However, the franchise has gone on to, at this point, 4 entries.
Jeez.
And Scott Adkins actually co-opted the franchise. So like I said, the Ving Rhames character, then the Michael Jai White character, started out as the protagonist, and then Scott Adkins was so dynamic in the role as the villain in the second one that the third and the fourth entry, they just said, "You're the hero now." like audiences just want an excuse to see more of you. So the third one is another tournament film. Like the second film is like a head-to-head thing, but the third one adopts the structure of like Bloodsport, where it's now a martial arts tournament. And by the time you get to the fourth one, it's just like Scott Adkins is in every shot. So it's like he totally co-opted the franchise. So it's a pivot point in more than one way, where it's like not only is it the franchise going direct to video, it's also we get a brand new hero, and we abandon the story from the first two.
Yeah.
But yeah, Brad, that was a lot. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. It's good because I don't think I have any direct to video sequels here, and that's an interesting subject of the sequel selections or whatever we're calling this.
There are quite a few of them.
Yeah.
Like for instance, I think technically Carnosaur may have screened in theaters at some point. But that went on to be like a trilogy on direct-to-video.
Yeah.
Anaconda most certainly did not remain in theaters for its entire existence, I would imagine. Like
the second one, I believe, was
second one, yes. But what about 3? Was that like a Sci-Fi Channel film?
No. Speaking of, this is off topic, but there is an Anaconda box set, I believe, by 88 Films. Looks beautiful, but it is Region B, so you got to have a region-free player, unfortunately. But man,
I'm kind of tempted, bro.
I'm tempted to go region-free. I'm really looking into it, but we'll see.
But yeah, then we also have Tremors, which went direct to video from 2 onward.
Yeah, that's a good one too. Yeah. I mean, just interesting. Like at least with Tremors, they still have the Bert character, and Michael Gross is still in it. So even though, that one, there's still some connection to the original, whereas like with Bloodsport, and it kind of sounds like eventually with Undisputed, like they do a recast or whatever. But it's just interesting, these sequels that lose all connection to their originals, but just keep going. For money. That's why any movie was made. But it is just interesting to see these things continue even after like everybody associated with them is done with it, essentially.
Yeah. Actually, I don't have any of them on DVD or Blu-ray, but also another Van Damme franchise, Kickboxer, also has at least 3 sequels. Maybe I think 4 sequels on direct-to-video. The last of which is headlined by Mark Dacascos, and I don't think has any ties to any of the other films, whereas the other 3 direct-to-video chapters, kind of like a Fast and Furious or something, is like, hang on, we're still telling this story? It's like I thought we ran out of story years ago, but no, like the Kickboxer sequels, if memory serves, it's like the Van Damme character gets killed off screen, which is really sad because his like brother also gets killed off screen, and then we pick up with like a third previously unspoken of brother in that family, and then we follow his misadventures in whatever country is cheapest to film in at the time of production. Yeah. So he ends up in like Brazil for reasons. But it very long-winded franchise, despite having this much story from chapter 1, like from the go.
Yeah, it's just crazy thing to see him like keep on going, but like I guess it sounds like you've watched the majority of these sequels, even when they get down in the dumps, and like Tremors. Yeah, I haven't seen the ice one and the. What was the other one? I don't even remember. I saw. I think
it's just the ice one at this point.
Because I saw the Africa one. I saw that
too.
one. But it's just, especially if it's the first one like Tremors, you've got a connection to it, and it just makes you want to keep like, even just if it's like, I don't even know. It's like if you're living in the future and all of our like all the cows have died because of climate change. We have no more cows, but they've created a pill that can taste like a filet mignon. And it's like it's not the real thing, but it's the closest I'm gonna get. So yeah, I'll give it a poke. I'll buy one of these pills.
I'm sorry to say it, but I probably would give that a poke.
Oh yeah,
just to see, like, as long as they assure me that it's not going to kill me.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But before I kick it back to you, Brad, I just want to say that it just occurred to me that it's like, wow, Scott Adkins is kind of the king of the unexpected direct-to-video sequel, because now that I think about it, it's like Michael Jai White did it bears a similar title. It's called Welcome to Sudden Death. So it's like the same premise as Jean-Claude Van Damme's Sudden Death, and it takes place in like a sports arena, just like that film. But like Scott Adkins also did Hard Target 2, which is like a decades later sequel to the John Woo Jean-Claude Van Damme film. And he also did like a sequel to Jarhead, which is one of the most unexpected sequels I can imagine, where it's like, the producers of Jarhead 2 and 3 and maybe 4, it's like, did you watch Jarhead? Like,
Yeah.
this is not the blueprint for franchise filmmaking, my friend.
Yeah, I didn't know there were so many Jarhead heads out there. But
Yeah, there's a lot of Jarhead heads out there, and there's also a lot of behind enemy lines.
yeah.
I seem to remember seeing those at Blockbuster back in the day. In fact, I've watched one of them. I think my brother just like threw it at me one day. He probably stole it from Blockbuster. I watched it. It wasn't half bad. But yeah, Scott Adkins has a lot of direct-to-video sequels to very, like, just unexpected films. It's like, Jarhead 3? What?
Yeah, I think I had heard when those came out, and I remember people thinking they were weird, but I kind of forgot about those. Yeah.
It's just the name recognition. It's some producer looking at it and being like, this will sell.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, that's enough out of me. Brad, what is your next number 2?
All right. Well, let me just say here, I love this film. This is a film I would say I'm putting the L word on this one. I love it. But I want you to just get your puke bucket ready, because I do not own the greatest release of this. Still Blu-ray. Let's not get crazy.
Okay.
But,
you had me worried there for a second.
I'm talking about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, which there is a Scream Factory collector's edition of this, which came out after I purchased the MGM Blu-ray. And I actually don't remember if the picture quality on this is that bad. I don't remember having any issues with it. But I'm assuming that the Scream Factory release is a better transfer, more extras. So, I'd like to have that. But we're in an age where, Scream Factory, they already put Prince of Darkness out on 4K. I feel like Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 might have been a big seller for them. Could be getting a 4K. You don't want to. You can't. It's too late in the game to double dip on a Blu-ray. It's just too late. If there's a 4K potential, I can't. I would never be able to look at myself again if I upgrade the Blu-ray to another Blu-ray and they announce a 4K and I got to buy this movie 3 times now. I can't do. That's too much. So I got the bare bones release here. Terrible cut. Like, that artwork is so not indicative of the film. Like, it is. Because, Texas Chainsaw, the first one, is very grimy, very grim, very dark, very a dour film. And directed by Tobe Hooper. Love Tobe Hooper. This one also directed by Tobe Hooper. But it's kind of like the Mission Impossible thing, where it's completely different from the one that preceded it, but made by the same director. So very interesting that Tobe Hooper decided to take the franchise that he started. It wasn't a franchise at the time, but decided to go in a completely different direction for the sequel. And Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 is very high energy, very goofy. It's almost a straight-up comedy. and I think at the time people really weren't a fan. They weren't a fan of that. I think it was a little too bit of a hard left. But I think it's people have grown to appreciate it, and I would say it's definitely not like as good of a film, or it's not like a classic like the original, but it's one that I come back to and watch again and again. Chop Top is awesome in it. Dennis Hopper is great, and it's a ton of fun. It's very watchable, very good film, and a good example of completely changing things up for a sequel. Which then you look at Leatherface, the third one, Leatherface, I think it's what's called, the Leatherface, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 or whatever. That one, I'm assuming because of the reception to part 2, goes back to essentially the same tone, same plot of part 1, and it is boring. It is so dull. It's just like redoing the same thing as the first one, but clearly, I don't know who directed that one, but just not having the talent that Tobe Hooper had, or, just the fact that, like, we've seen this before, and we've seen many imitators of it since, like, Texas Chainsaw. Like, this would have been, Texas Chainsaw 2 was, like, at least 10 years after the first one, so the third one had to be at least 12, maybe 15. Like, we're talking way after the original Texas Chainsaw 2, so to imitate it like that late in the game, not great. It does star Viggo Mortensen, so you get a little bit of fun in that one. And then you go to Texas Chainsaw 4, and they take a hard left again, and it gets super goofy, and you got Leatherface wearing drag. There's this like conspiracy plot. I love this franchise, man. It's just, you never know it's all over the place.
Yeah, the Texas Chainsaw films have certainly gone all over the map. I haven't followed it extensively. I've just kind of like dipped in and out of it from time to time. Yeah. So I have a lot of holes in my viewing of the franchise. So like, I think I saw the first Platinum Dunes remake, but not the second. And then I seem to recall there was another film after that was not well received.
Yeah,
I can't even remember the name of that one. I think it's a prequel or something.
Yep.
But I haven't seen the third one, but I have seen most of the second one, but not the first one.
Oh.
And I've seen all of the fourth one, which is batshit crazy. It has brownie points for featuring a very young Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah.
And was it who was the gal in there?
Renee
it was also
Zellweger,
a big name.
isn't it?
I think you're right.
Which I'll go on record. I don't love that fourth one, but I kind of like it for just being like so like amped up, and it's definitely, I will 100% say it's better than 3. It's much better than 3, because at least that one is interesting. 3 is just boring.
Yeah, no, I could totally see that, because like 4 is not good by most standards, but at least Matthew McConaughey, like,
he's so
at least he swings for the fences. And he has fun with it. And I guess that movie got kind of butchered in editing or something, because yes, there is like some sort of government conspiracy in there where apparently he was contracted by the CIA or something. And I seem to remember hearing that a lot of that just ended up on the cutting room floor just because the movie was busted to begin with. So it's like, we're just not going to bother.
Yeah, I will say, I did just quickly, I know we're talking second films, but while we're talking about 4, I did quickly grab the collector's edition of the fourth one.
Okay.
Which does actually include 2 versions of the film. I think.
Oh.
I've only seen it once. I'm guessing I watched the standard, the theatrical cut, but there is a director's cut, which is only in standard definition. But maybe might have checked that out.
Yeah, let me know if you do, because I remember reading about that a very long time ago. But it's one of those movies that I wasn't exactly in a hurry to go dig it up. But yeah. I have seen it, and that's more than I can say for a lot of the entries in that franchise. But Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 is a curious little film, especially for a number 2 in a franchise. In fact, the movie that comes to mind is a similar case. Same director, number 2 in a series, Gremlins 2, the new
Yeah,
batch.
yep. Wow.
So we have Joe Dante taking another swing at the Gremlins franchise, and very similar to what Tobe Hooper did. It's just like, hey, look at that. He's got it right on deck.
All right, I won't pull this off as an official entry, but yeah, definitely another good sequel that, yeah, like you said, it's like the exact same boat. It's goofier. It goes in a completely different direction. Same director. Yeah, you're right on the money, man. I didn't even think that putting these two together.
All right. Well, if you have more to say about it, we can do the speed round and you can get it all out. But yeah, if memory serves, was Texas Chainsaw 2, was that part of the canon deal with Tobe Hooper? Because he was like coming off of Poltergeist, if memory serves.
Yeah.
And then he was given a boatload of money to make like 3 movies, and they all tanked.
I think it was the last one that he did with them. I think I could be
Invaders
wrong.
from Mars, I think Texas Chainsaw 2, and most certainly Life Force.
Yeah, I think it's those
that was
three.
one of the big ones.
Yeah. Yeah, because
they all tanked.
After that, his like movies definitely, yeah, the scope, the budget, so
The Mangler.
I still got to pick that up. I still got to watch that one. Maybe this Halloween.
Please, Brad, let me know. Actually, I'm looking forward to a micro review on Cinema Speak of The Mangler.
If I do Hooptober, I mean, everybody does Hooptober on Letterboxd, and one of the rules is you got to at least watch one Tobe Hooper film. So I could be my Tobe Hooper film for Hooptober.
Make mine The Mangler.
Yeah.
But yeah, Texas Chainsaw 2 famously had or perhaps infamously had the the Breakfast Club marketing campaign?
Yeah.
Which, like Brad showed you, the cover art for that movie, for that Blu-ray he has, is horrendous. Because they did it and they aped the Breakfast Club marketing. So they had all of our psycho killer characters, our psycho cannibals, like laying down in front of each other, much like Judd Nelson and the crew and stuff. And that was the billboard they used to advertise that movie. So it was the marketing crew's way of saying, this is going to be a little silly. And it is a violent film, but at the same time it is Looney Tunes goofy from time to time. The production design on that movie is wild, crazy stuff. Like Tobe Hooper always had an eye for that kind of stuff. And Brad, let me ask you, best chainsaw fight in cinema? Because I can think of 3 off the top of my head.
Boy. Well, give me the 3.
So, if memory serves, Motel Hell has a chainsaw fight.
I've never seen that one.
Okay. I've told you that story before, but my parents famously went to go see that. Yeah, in the theater. And Mandy. Chainsaw fight Mandy.
Yes.
Which at this point I would assume has the title for best chainsaw fight in cinema history. But Dennis Hopper has a chainsaw fight in that one.
Yeah.
Like I it's been a minute since I've seen that part, so maybe you can counter me on that one. Are you Googling chainsaw fights?
Yeah, I am. Apparently there's one in just based on
the NSA is gonna come a knocking, Brad.
I said best
we have a
chainsaw
kid
fight
looking
movies.
up chainsaw fights on the Googles.
Let's see. I mean, no, the Phantasm 2 apparently has one. I don't remember.
I haven't seen, so I can't comment.
Yeah, I don't know. I keep seeing Mandy, Motel Hell, Texas Chainsaw 2.
I mean, the remake of Evil Dead has one of the better chainsaw kills, but that's not a chainsaw fight.
Yeah.
A chainsaw fight requires both parties to be equipped with a chainsaw.
Yeah. And also, I just got to say, like, I don't know when, but I would say within the last, 6-7 years. Like, I never grew up on the films of Dennis Hopper. But, man, I love, and I don't think I've ever seen a movie and I was like, Dennis Hopper was okay. It's like every time he's in a movie, I'm like, this guy kills it every time. I love Dennis Hopper. He's great.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same spot. I don't have, like, an extensive familiarity with his filmography, but I can't name off the top of my head, like, a bad showing from him. Mm-hmm. I mean, even Super Mario Brothers, he worked with what he had.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we get him pointing and say, monkey.
He's the best part of the movie.
he kind of is, to be honest. I mean, the production design's the best part of the movie.
Yeah.
But you know, him as King Koopa, he tried. He was probably shit-faced. No, wait, he was sober, I think, when they filmed that. So he was probably just grumpy the whole time.
Yeah.
It was Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo. They were throwing him back like every day.
Yeah. So, and I mean, I don't know if you've seen, but Blue Velvet, he's amazing in that.
I haven't seen the whole movie. I forget where I dipped out of it, but it wasn't for any real reason. It was just I think I didn't have time to finish it or something. But I got to see a bit of him, and I was like, whoa.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is a performance.
It's not like your dad took you on a date or no, like wait, that sounded weird. No, it's not like your dad took you and your date to go see Blue Velvet, like in The Squid and the Whale. No, it wasn't one of those situations.
No. I didn't have anything like that happen.
Okay.
Although I did have, my friend's dad took us to see Starship Troopers, and I remember the shower scene in that one was a little weird because we were both like we were like 13, and we have this big ex-Marine guy just like sitting in the theater like this, while these two fucking kids are just like going.
Yeah.
But anything else to say about Texas Chainsaw 2 or
no.
the franchise as a whole?
I think that about covers it. Yeah.
Alrighty. Do you know if there's any plans to continue the series? Because, like I said, there's that mystery like additional chapter that I can't even remember what year it came out, but I want to say it was pretty recent.
The last one was Leatherface. I think that was the title of it. Yeah. I think it was just Leatherface.
It's kind of redundant, isn't it? Didn't they do that with the third one?
Yeah, I guess they did. Because actually, now that I think there's been 2 prequels. I guess technically there was that one, Leatherface, and I thought you were talking about Texas Chainsaw: The Beginning, which that is
that's a different one.
Yeah, that's the only one I think I haven't seen all the way through.
Okay.
But yeah, I haven't heard anything if there's going to be another one or not. Which it'll be next one will be some direct to video garbage, I'm sure, like they've been in the last little bit, but
yeah, I mean, you have your finger to the horror pulse quite a bit better than I do. Like, are slashers / like these kinds of movies in vogue right now? Because I want to say no. Like,
yeah, I mean, I really thought that with the success of the Halloween reboot, I really thought we'd be getting a Friday the 13th reboot. I thought that shit would be fast tracked, but no, still hasn't. Although, isn't it somebody like? Is it? I think it's LeBron James was rumored to be producing a Friday the 13th film.
I think you're right. I seem to recall hearing that.
Yeah, it was a very weird. Like, oh, that's weirdly interesting. But yeah, LeBron James Friday the 13th. Yeah, I don't know how. Yeah, okay, this is from Variety. Yeah, Variety, but this was back like 3 years ago, so yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I guess it's all up in the air, but at this point, like, you can tell by the way Brad and I are talking about this, it's inevitable. Like this is where we're at, folks. They will take another swing. Just give them a few minutes.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay, so what is my next pick gonna be? Okay, so I'm not going to cheat this time. I was very tempted to. And again, you are absolutely welcome to if you would like. There are no rules on Tales from the Shelf. So I have here 2 DVDs, so I'm sorry to break your heart again, Brad. So this is 2 at-bats here that I've had nothing but DVDs for you, nothing but standard definition. I have here Highlander II, The Quickening, as well as Highlander II, Renegade version.
Oh.
Yeah. So, Brad, are you familiar with these 2 films at all?
I gotta tell you, I am extremely unfamiliar with any of the Highlander films.
Okay, that's
other than the basic idea of what it's about. But that's it.
There can be only one.
Yeah.
Like, that much. Okay, and the princes of the universe and all that stuff. Highlander is a strange franchise. It was never well presented, nor was it ever technically good, but it has its fans. I'm not chief among them. Like, I wouldn't consider myself a fan of. I'm doing the Chris Farley fan. I don't consider myself a fan of Highlander. I don't wipe properly. I don't own a toothbrush. I don't consider myself like a fan of the Highlander franchise, but I was like bombarded with it like in the early 90s. I just remember a lot of chatter about Highlander all the fucking time. And a lot of it was because there was a television series in the mid 90s starring Adrian Paul, I think. And it's a character very similar to those direct-to-video sequels I was talking about, where it's like we have Christopher Lambert as Connor MacLeod, and then Duncan MacLeod was on the television series. So he's like his cousin or some shit, who just also happens to be immortal. Go figure. So that show was really, really popular, and it was on like cable, like TNT or TBS or one of those stations. And I think like my brother's friends were really into it, and they even it was popular enough they even got like a spin-off series like called the Highlander the Raven or something, with like a lady Highlander or something. And there was a cartoon that I watched here and there. I forget what the subtitle of that was, but it was a shitty 90s cartoon that, because it was on, I watched it. And then there was like a Jaguar game, which no one in the neighborhood had a Jaguar, but we had a subscription to GamePro. I got to see some screenshots from it. But point is, Highlander just was kind of ever present throughout the 90s for me. I can't remember what year the third one came out, but it was definitely when I was conscious of it, when I was cognizant of what was out in theaters and stuff. And of course, there was the sequel that merged the film franchise with the television series and brought the television character into the film series. So it was
like Star Trek Generations almost, right? Is that the right?
Bingo. Again, same era. Like, I'm sure that was where they aped it from, where they were looking at what Star Trek was doing, and they're like, we should take a swing at that too.
Classic.
With our shitty sword fighting fantasy series that nobody actually likes. It just has elements that are universally well liked, such as like medieval fantasy stuff and lots of swords and depacketations, as Kyle would say.
When you said there were 2 Highlander TV series, I had to look it up because I just didn't believe you.
I don't blame you, man. But I was there for it. I remember this shit, and I didn't actually consume any of it. I just somehow absorbed it through osmosis. So I was just eternally aware of the Highlander series. So for me, it was one of those franchises that I forget how old I was when I first came to it, but I was very excited to check it out just because it had gotten so much hype. And then I saw it and I was like, it's okay. like not a single entry in the franchise, even from the beginning, is actually that good. Mm-hmm. Like, none of it's good, but it has a fan base. For fuck's sake, Brad, I have a Japanese animated film from the Highlander series. Somebody financed that shit. Somebody.
Sounds like you're one of these fans that you say you don't know what they're smoking.
I am and I'm not. So I would say I'm not, because I don't actually like it. I just like components of it. Because
I bet you that's what all the actual fans say too.
They all have an excuse. That's what they all say. I mean, for fuck's sake, you have Sean Connery, who's at a certain point in time, like rest in peace. I miss that man. Like I used to say when I was a little kid, the world will weep when that man passes. I hope that was true. I know I shed a tear, because I really miss Sean Connery. I thought he was a fantastic screen presence. They found a way to worm him into Highlander 2, but like his presence in the first 2 films is really kind of what makes the first one in particular. But the other element of the films that I think sticks with a lot of people is like the Queen soundtrack for the first one, but also the direction of Russell Mulcahy, who is an Aussie director who is known for putting really fantastic images on the screen, but my God, he just does not know how to tell a story. Like, actually, I think it's very, very, very fitting that he ended up directing the 3rd Resident Evil film, because I feel like he and Paul W.S. Anderson are cut from the same cloth, where it's like they know their way around lighting and production design, but my God, like they have no sense of how, like, narrative flow and how to actually tell a story that people engage with. And it just so happens that Highlander 1 and 2, very similar to your Texas Chainsaw, are both directed by Russell Mulcahy. However, the second film takes the biggest fucking shit on the franchise from its second entry. It's kind of amazing. It's an incredible story that from the prologue of the second one, they just like spread their cheeks and just dump all their ass all over the franchise.
Wow.
Yeah, because the premise, the basic premise of Highlander is that there's like a specific breed of human who they call immortals. That they come together in something called the Gathering. They cut each other's heads off. That's the only way for them to kill each other, and their life force is transferred between all of them until there can be only one. And that's the end of the first film. Spoiler alert. And then the second one's like, yeah, all that's bullshit. The immortals aren't like earthbound. They're aliens from the planet Zeist. And in a different world, like in a different lifetime, Christopher Lambert and Sean Connery knew each other as aliens. And they both like fused their life forces together using this tangerine fluid. And then Michael Ironside was an evil alien general on the planet Zeist who follows them to Earth in the future. And Virginia Madsen's here. And we're going to get the production designer of Blade Runner to come up with some shit. And Highlander 2 is... I've said this so many times on Catching Up on Cinema. I have a little bit of a masochistic relationship with film. When I hear something is bad, like in a special kind of way, I gotta see it.
Yeah.
I gotta own two different versions of it. Because the reason this is called the Renegade version is that it's an alternate cut of the film where they remove all mention of the alien element.
Oh, okay.
So they restructure the plot to make it more consistent with the first film, and indeed all the other films in the franchise, because guess what? There is a Highlander 3, there is a Highlander 4, and so on and so forth. None of them call back to Highlander 2. Like, they buried that shit. So it's just this odd duck in the franchise that was very, very expensive. Sean Connery absolutely didn't want to be there. His character was killed off in the first film, Brad, and they just bring him back for marketing reasons.
Yeah.
It's a complete fucking mess of a movie on par with like a Super Mario Brothers. Same production designer.
Well, there you go.
And you kind of have to see it to believe it, where it's just like, what are we doing? Like, nobody even liked the first one that much. Like, why are we dumping so much money into the second one? And why are we trying so very hard in all the wrong ways?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it represents a massive pivot point in the franchise that was so bad, so poorly received, that they just ignored it. Like in modern film, like in film history, I don't think that happens very often. That a chapter that early in a franchise gets swept under the rug. Like, I want to say that's something that usually is reserved for later chapters or something.
I mean, kind of an example of that, the new Halloween movies, they disregard everything after the first one.
Yeah, actually, I forgot to mention it. Your Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 kind of mirrors, I want to say, what happened with Halloween 3. Where it's like, we're going to do a chapter without the Michael Myers story, see how that plays out. Nobody liked it, so we're going to go back to basics, kind of what they did with Texas Chainsaw 3, where it's just like, nobody liked that goofy one. I guess we got to go back to basics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I would highly recommend, like, if you can stomach, like, 80s trash, but, like, expensive-looking 80s trash. like you got Michael Ironside hamming it up, and apparently he almost lost his eye on the set because Christopher Lambert is known to be blind, basically.
Oh, yeah?
Like, his vision is he's, like, legally blind. Like, he can see, but his vision is apparently so poor that he legally is considered blind. And he's asked to wield a sword in all of these films. And I guess in his scene with Michael Ironside, he nearly took the guy's eye out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I think John C. McGinley's in there. He gets a pretty gruesome death, as far as I recall.
Okay.
He just plays a smarmy suit type, which he's always good at,
Yeah, I will definitely dip on Highlander if and when it comes out on 4K.
You'll pony up the cash for
somebody
4K.
put this. This will become this will be a 4K release. I mean,
actually, that's actually the reason I have these DVDs is because I did a little bit of research on this terrible fucking movie, on the state of the HD releases for it, and as far as I understand, we haven't made any progress.
Yeah,
because like I said, there is a renegade cut of it on DVD. And there have been rumors suggesting, maybe taking another stab at something like that on like in an HD format. But as far as I'm aware, none of the Blu-ray releases, while they are pretty handsome packages, again for a shitty fucking movie, none of them had the extras, like the story, like the behind the scenes stuff that I really want to see.
Yeah.
So if they do put out something like that, actually, all I want is a documentary. Like, all I want is a candid documentary being honest and upfront about the shit show that Highlander 2 was, because there is a story to tell, but it doesn't exist in an official form anyway. It's just whispered about in forums and stuff.
I could definitely see this being a potential Arrow 4K. I mean, it's not that far off from David Lynch's Dune. I mean, you got the tie-in with the new Dune, which I'm sure helped push them to do that, but I could see Arrow putting this bad boy out. You never know.
Well, there have been rumors of a new Highlander film, a reboot of sorts, which has yet to happen. The last entry in the series is even worse than Highlander 2. It's called Highlander: The Source, and if memory serves, I think it was partially financed by the Sci-Fi Channel.
Oh, yeah.
It was most definitely shot in like Bulgaria or something, and it has one of the worst covers of Princes of the Universe I think I've ever heard, and some of the most laughable CGI I've ever seen. It's terrible. It's even worse than Highlander 2, but as far as I understand, the franchise has never been rebooted.
Okay.
And it is apparently in production. I don't know who's attached or what the concept is, but again, apparently it's a winning formula to somebody. So if you make it, they will come in their pants.
Yeah. I want to mention quick, this is a little off topic from, not too far off topic, but Russell Mulcahy. Did you know one of his films is being put out by Vinegar Syndrome on Blu-ray?
Oh, no. Which one?
Resurrection.
Oh,
which
I have not seen that one.
It does star Christopher Lambert. From what I can tell, sounds like it's a Seven ripoff. Serial killer, religious inspired kind of thing. But I don't know. I might be picking this one up. It's coming out, I think, later this month.
I would say check that one out, Brad, because the one thing that you can say across the board about Russell Mulcahy is that he makes handsome fucking films.
Yeah.
His first film I picked up on Australian Blu-ray, Razorback, is about a giant boar. And the best thing I can say about it is actually the landscape photography, because my God, the vistas. Like it's an eat 'em up. Like, it's about a giant boar rampaging through the outback, but for some reason the one thing I came away with was, my God, the vistas. Like the sunsets, they're gorgeous. And even The Shadow from the mid-90s, that movie's kind of trash, but from a visual standpoint, it's pretty good looking film. So I wouldn't be surprised if Resurrection was also a handsome film, at least to look at.
Yeah. I might have to pop on that one. Get the limited edition slipcover.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Also, I mean, this is real off topic. I mean, you can cut this out if you want, but Champagne and Bullets, which I know you purchased, I might have to pick that up because that thing sold like hotcakes. They're already down to under 1,000 units on their website, and they had like 6,000 to start.
Yeah, and strange story behind that one. I've mentioned it to you, like probably off air, that movie was featured on Red Letter Media in the form of Get Heaven, It's supposed to be get even, but they forgot to put a space in between the words get and even, so get even. But apparently it's a passion project of its director and star, who also happens to be like a copyright lawyer. So it was one of those movies where the Red Letter Media folks, the guys from Wisconsin, they had a VHS of the movie, and then of course their fans wanted to check out the full film, and then they found they could not obtain it because copyright lawyer, he cracked down on any bootlegs of it and was like threatening legal action and stuff. So like for years, I was actively searching for Get Even because my brother and I watched the Red Letter Media review of it, and we were both just like, I need to see this. Like, this is amazing. And so when the Vinegar Syndrome sale happened, Brad was the one who tipped me off to that. I actually have never bought from Vinegar Syndrome before, but Brad reminded me. And I saw that, and I was just like, well, I know what I'm spending my fucking money on, so I bought 2 copies of that shit.
Yeah.
And I gave one to my brother as a gift. So I'm not surprised that it's selling really well because of the Red Letter Media fan base and whatnot.
Yeah. Plus, I believe, I could be mistaken, but normally on Vinegar Syndrome's website, when they say only so much in stock, they're talking about the slipcover. And usually slipcover runs out, well, you can just buy the standard Blu-ray, no slipcover. So whatever. But I believe with this one, it is a VSA release, and that means that once they sell out, they're done. So, hot tip.
Yeah.
If you want, you're probably not going to be able to make it till the next Vinegar Syndrome sale. I'm probably going to be picking this up in a full price order.
Yeah, just be forewarned. There are apparently 3 cuts of the film on the disc. Champagne and Bullets, Get Even, and Road to Revenge. I watched the Champagne and Bullets cut because that was the most recent cut, probably completed like this year or something.
Yeah.
Because this was like shot in the 90s or maybe even the late 80s, and the directors like retooled it multiple times over the years. Just based on the Champagne and Bullets cut, it's akin to Bloodsport 4.
Okay.
There's quite a bit more. There's quite a bit more tits in this movie than there are punches thrown in anger, which for me is a bit of a letdown.
Coming from Vinegar Syndrome, that's almost to be expected, so no worries there.
I want to say the Get Even cut has a little bit more embarrassing fisticuffs, which is what I was paying for. So I may actually have to go back and watch that because the Champagne and Bullets cut actually made me kind of uncomfortable. Like, I was like, I don't know, man. This, like, if I put this on with like my friends or something, I'd be like, I'm sorry, guys. Like, I didn't know. I didn't know. How could I have known?
You're a step away from putting on Vinegar Syndrome's 4K release of Sex World. I mean, you're one step.
I mean, the example that comes to mind is a Hard Ticket to Hawaii, which is a fun movie in fits and spurts, but in between all that, it's tits. And when you're watching a film with your buddies on the couch, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna get something to drink. it's like this is something I'd rather watch alone.
Yeah.
But like in fits and spurts, that movie is absolutely uproariously hilarious. But then it reverts into softcore mode, and Champagne and Bullets most certainly leans more heavily into that than the action component. So I want to say that the other cuts of the movie are maybe more fun and less uncomfortable.
Okay. Yeah.
But the limited edition thing makes a lot of sense because the man, I think at this point he is well aware that people are buying his product to laugh at him. But I'm sure he penned some sort of limited deal with Vinegar Syndrome where it's like, I will license this to you, but I will make all the profits out of it, and then you will bury this shit.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it was a very, very sweet deal for him, for John DeHart, I think is the guy's name.
Yeah. Well, good for him.
Yeah, no, he made a shitty movie in the 90s, and he's like John Lovitz in The Wedding Singer, reaping all the benefits.
Yeah.
Okay, so ball is to you, sir. What's your next number 2, Brad?
Well, you've told me twice now that I can cheat, so I'm going to do it. I'm cheating on this one.
Fuck yeah.
And this might be a big cheat. I might get banned from the show for this one. We'll see. This one, is this a sequel? I mean, technically, I'm going to say it's not, but I'm going to, you said I could cheat, so I'm doing it. I'm doing it. I don't care. This is the second season of a TV show. This is, and I think it works in a way because I think they do almost. It almost does work as a sequel because they leave behind the original location from the first season. They leave behind quite a few main characters, and each season is kind of in a way it's sort of not its own self-contained thing, but it is kind of a little bit of each is a soft reboot. And I'm talking about one of my favorite TV shows ever, and this is The Leftovers, the complete second season. Now, The Leftovers is written and created by my boy, the wonderful Damon Lindelof, who is famous for Lost, Prometheus, all the things I love in life, and The Leftovers, which I think this, honestly, I mean, you could pick a couple things like, Twin Peaks: The Return, certainly up there, but this might be my favorite season of any TV show ever. They take what was good about the first season of The Leftovers. I do like the first season, but they move it to a totally new location. And for those who don't know, The Leftovers, the concept is one day 3% of the world's population just disappears. So, most of us are still here. 97% of us are still here. But a lot of people were just gone. And it kind of explores what happens in the aftermath of in a world like that. Like, how do you move on? How do you grieve? How do you cope? So it's a very dark, very kind of grim show. But with the second season, the first season takes place in New York. The second season, the concept is we follow just like the core family from the first season and a couple other side characters, but really we leave behind a lot of characters. And they end up moving to a town in Texas where it's the only place on Earth where nobody disappeared. That's the concept. Nobody disappeared in the big event, so it's been given this like holy status. So it's to such a degree that they literally have like armed guards who have to the town is essentially in a lockdown because so many people are flocking to this town because they think it's been blessed. So there's people that camp on the outskirts of it. It's just like a crazy place on the outside and then just a quiet small town on the inside. So this family is somehow able to get and move into this town, and we also follow a brand new set of characters who are from that town, and it kind of goes from there. It's an amazing season of TV. Even they completely reboot the opening titles, new theme song, new opening title. So I think I'm justifying including it in a sequel episode, but I've been wanting to talk about it for a while. So it's awesome. And it definitely gets very kind of similar to like Lost or something like that. It gets very not necessarily science fiction-y, but it gets very, I guess, mystical and spiritual, and it's definitely not operating in any kind of reality. Like there is an entire episode, which is an amazing episode of TV, essentially that takes place in like a sort of purgatory or a sort of afterlife. And it follows our main character in this weird world, this weird zone, and it's great. Justin Theroux is in it. Carrie Coon, great cast. Regina King, who also was with Damon Lindelof, worked with him on Watchmen. Damon Lindelof, he's my boy. He's the man. I love him. So yeah, season 2 is the height of the show. One of my all-time favorite seasons of all time.
Now, is The Leftovers wrapped? Like, is it a completed series at this point?
Yep, they did 3 seasons, so pretty short. I think it's like 28 episodes. Not many, but it's packs a punch, man. It packs a punch.
Now, how did you come across The Leftovers? Like, did you like catch wind like during the hype train, like the build up for it, or did you like stumble across it later?
Yeah, it was kind of I had known there was somebody I followed on Twitter, like some YouTuber, who was posting about season 1 when season 1 was happening, and was like, "Oh, The Leftovers is great. You got to watch it." And at this point, I loved Lost, but Damon Lindelof, he wasn't quite my boy at this point. Like, I like Lost and I like Prometheus, but I fully acknowledge that like the script in Prometheus is probably the weakest aspect of it. So it's not like I love Prometheus just for him or anything. But I was like, yeah, I'd like to check that out. And I think the first season came out on Blu-ray, and I watched it, and was like, oh, this is really good. This is really good. And I think maybe it was like the second season had, or maybe I used HBO to watch the second season. I can't remember. But anyway, I watched the second season quickly after the first one, and that was where I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like, I think I've watched it maybe 3 times the entire season within the last, I don't even know when this came out, 2016 or something. So, like, you know, watching a season of TV 3 times in 5 years is pretty good. So,
I mean, that's unbelievable by my standards. I have a general aversion to the series format, although, like, I actually have been trying to work on like a story of my own. Like I'm at that point where I'm in my 30s now. I've taken in a lot of movies. I've taken in a lot of other people's stuff, and I have that itch to like give back a little. Like, it feels kind of selfish to just gorge yourself on other people's entertainment products. It's like, man, it's like, do I gotta like pay you back at some point? So I like have an idea that I've been trying to work on over the past several years, and the series format seems like tailor made for it, such that like I'm really like trying to get out of my comfort zone and come around to the idea of watching things in that format, because I'm very serious. I very seldom watch like serialized like television series, like not since I was young anyway, not since I was a kid. Like I would watch my cartoons and stuff, but like HBO series and stuff, like I've seen a couple. Like I haven't seen very many of them. And like network television shows, I like, aside from like Seinfeld and like Frasier, like sitcom type stuff, like I don't get wrapped up in like the really 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 long form stories and stuff. And as far as I understand, I'm missing out on a lot of stuff, because like these days they have that phrase, the golden age of television. Supposedly The Sopranos was like the starting point, and we're currently in this era where just like all the best shit that's getting made is in this long form storytelling format. And I'm really trying to like just like break through that barrier and like get more accustomed to digesting stories in that format, because it's a really versatile format that I think really does lend itself well to telling more dimensioned stories. Like, more and more I'm starting to realize that like people like to just live with characters sometimes. Like, it doesn't even really matter if the story moves from episode to episode. People just get really enamored with spending time in these worlds with these people, and they just want more of it. But one thing that I think is neat about your Leftovers thing is that it does have an ending, because that's something that always bugs me about the series format, is that because things get renewed, like there's that urge to keep things rolling, where it's just like, if we keep like setting the goalpost further and further away, we'll never get there. But when something has an endpoint, it becomes that much more attractive to me, because I know it's like, that's it. Like everything that will be is there. So like I know the breadth of the story. So it makes it more approachable to me. But really cool premise. Like I'm kind of intrigued by that, because like the possibilities, like in terms of concept, is like if you came into a pitch room with that, sure, I'd give you a few bucks. Like, it's like, go nuts, don't fuck it up.
I mean, you know, another reason maybe I like this, which, to be fair, it's in the first season, and I think that's one of the weaker. It's probably the weakest season of the show. But the pilot episode, and I think the second episode, directed by not my boy, but like my boy's friend, I guess, Pete Berg. Who, you know that I've got a soft spot for some of the Berg joints. So, you know, he directs the pilot. Craig Zobel, who directed a movie called Compliance that I really liked. He also directed The Hunt, which came out last year or the year before.
The Betty Gilpin movie?
Yeah, yep. He directs some very pivotal episodes in season 2 and 3. So it's cool to see him in there. And it's a really good show. I would say if you're looking for like midway point to kind of like get into the series format. There's quite a few like HBO series that are like the kind of the one and dones where the White Lotus is a real good example of it, where even though it's like they did renew it for a second season, but it's going to be like a whole new cast of characters thing. Whatever. I don't care about that. The first season is a standalone story. It's 6 episodes, and it's all completely wrapped up by the end. So, whatever they do from here, who cares? Because it's like totally, this story is done. And I think they've said it will not, like the new season won't have any of the same characters. It's like totally new. So, like, it's basically, you can just look at it as just like one long movie. And in a lot of ways, it kind of is, because it's not like with a lot of TV shows, they've got like, they got to end on a cliffhanger. They got that. With The White Lotus specifically, it never felt like that. It felt like it was kind of just, 6 like chunks of a story, and it was kind of like each episode was one day at this resort. But that's definitely one I would recommend. And I mean, you kind of got to do quite a bit of work to get there, but if you want something that's a series that is not like a series format kind of thing, Twin Peaks: The Return is probably the best example of that. Literally, I mean, they say it's an 18-hour movie. Again, I don't totally agree with that 100%, but I see what they're getting at. So, but again, you got to go through 2 seasons of what was a great and very weird, but still a network TV show to get there.
Yeah, I seem to remember you saying that if it was plausible, like if you could spin it, I think that was your favorite movie of that year.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I actually have seen the first 2 seasons of Twin Peaks.
Oh, well, perfect. So what are you waiting for, bud? Let's go.
I don't have Showtime.
Hey, man, there's we got Blu-ray releases up the wazoo.
I know I don't have any excuses, but I actually very much would like to see that, because I thoroughly enjoyed my time with Twin Peaks.
Mm-hmm.
I think Kyle had some issues, like he was finding difficulty like getting into the swing of things. I told him to stick with it, but he'll come back to it.
Yeah,
he's intrigued by David Lynch. But I told him, like, Twin Peaks, it's gonna take a minute for you to pick up what it's putting down.
Mm-hmm.
But I did watch at Kyle's urgings. He told me when I did get HBO, the first thing I should watch was True Detective season 1. I did watch that, as well as the second season, which he told me not to watch. But I had to, because we have a running gag in the family that my brother looks quite a bit like Colin Farrell.
Yeah.
So we refer to him as either my son or my brother. So it's like, oh, but my brother's in it. Like, I gotta watch it.
Mm-hmm.
It was not nearly as good, but that
No.
first season, I think Kyle has watched that probably about as often as you've watched your second season of The Leftovers.
Yeah. I mean, that's another good one, because like with The White Lotus, like I had said, and True Detective, all one director as well. So it feels like a movie. It's one vision. So yeah.
Yeah, bringing it back to No Time to Die. Same director, Cary Joji Fukunaga, I think.
Yeah.
Don't fuck it up. Seriously.
It's got a lot of pressure.
Yeah, all the pressure in the world. But I'll have to think about The Leftovers, because 3 seasons, that's not asking too much, even from me.
You can do it. Do it.
And I've been meaning to find something I could watch with the girlfriend, because she adores the series format. She loves her characters. Like, the characters are what make a story for her. She's not so much about plot. She's about characters that she can just hang out with and like get to see all the angles of. And I'll see if I can lobby for that.
Could be the one. Just as long as she knows it's very depressing. Very.
Okay, that might not fly, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, ball is to me. So many choices. I'm gonna cheat again. I'm just gonna keep cheating all night, Brad.
Hey, I pull the big cheat, so you cheat as much as you want, bud.
This is gonna be a big cheat, but I'm gonna try to keep it brief, because this could be a whole episode unto itself.
Oh boy. You just pull out like an original film, not a sequel. Like, just like
well, what we have here is a situation where a franchise kind of has a pivot point at Chapter 2, and then Chapter 2 actually better represents the franchise as a whole than Chapter 1 does.
Oh.
If that makes sense. So let me see if I can explain myself. So I have here, and there's a reason at least one of these I'm going to keep very brief, because, as I said, it could be an entire episode unto itself. So I might even just say we're not talking about that. I just wanted to point it out. So we have the Rocky collection, which the reason I'm picking this one is because Rocky 2, I'm not saying it's an exceptional sequel. In fact, this Rocky 2 is the one that my mom always like rolls her eyes at when it comes on the TV, because she's like, oh, that fucking guy. Because Rocky 2 came out in the wake of Rocky 1. Sylvester Stallone was riding super fucking high, so it's just kind of like the Sylvester Stallone show. Mm-hmm. And he got into the director's chair for the second one, onward up until 5, where John G. Avildsen came back, and then he got the boot again. I think he died, and then Rocky 6, of course, Rocky Balboa, Stallone again. So Rocky 2, I want to say, better represents the whole franchise rather than the first film, because the way I've always thought of it is Rocky 1 is, it's a Best Picture winner, it's an incredible film, it's about a person and a life, whereas the sequels are more just about what that guy's doing. They become more just like about what Rocky's up to. Like, let's go check in on the Balboas. Whereas the first one, it's like, no, this is like a chapter from this person's life at a very pivotal moment. And yeah, Rocky 2, the reason why my mom thought it was so obnoxious is it's just Stallone stroking himself. And like the way his dialogue is structured and a lot of his scenes, he's just kind of like flailing around and using way too many words. Like, he's just kind of stroking himself throughout the whole movie. It's a little obnoxious. And then they go ahead and they rewrite the ending, the first one, where it's like, oh, it's the same movie except he wins at the end. But as a franchise, like I said, I think Chapter 2 represents that pivotal moment where it became a franchise. And then the format of the second one better reflects the format of all the sequels going forward until Rocky 5 and Balboa. Mm-hmm. But all the sequels kind of match the format of the second one much more than the first one. And similarly, Rambo, same fucking guy, Sylvester Stallone. The first one, First Blood, obviously is a very, very different movie from the rest of the films.
Yeah.
We now have 5 of them, but 2 was where it became the jingoistic G.I. Joe action hero franchise. First one is not that. Not nearly, not by a long shot, but the second one represents the pivot point where he became an action figure. He became G.I. Joe. So Chapter 2 was like that moment where the franchise became a fucking franchise. And then the thing that probably would be more appropriate to talk about, being as I'm pretty sure I've talked at length about both of those franchises multiple fucking times, is the Bourne trilogy, more specifically the Bourne Supremacy, wherein I believe the first film was directed by Doug Liman, and then the second film thereon would be directed by Paul Greengrass. And the series identity was established from Chapter 2 onward, such that the first one, despite being the fucking first film, is now the odd duck of the franchise, where it's the one that, well, aside from the Jeremy Renner one that we don't talk about, because that movie fucking bites. But yeah, the Paul Greengrass effect. Like, he kind of created an entire subgenre of action film, with the style that he brought, the handheld shaky cam style that he brought to the Bourne Supremacy. And I think it's really fascinating that it wasn't the first one, it was the second one where they really got it, and they just kind of stuck with that even through the end of the franchise. Same director, same basic flavor. But yeah, the one thing that, like, say what you will about the Bourne films, I have my misgivings about them. Like, I don't think they're thoroughly engaging from front to back. Like, a lot of times it's just, it's very difficult to get swept up in them. Like, you feel slightly alienated by the shaky cam and by the voyeuristic camera angles and the really excessive editing from time to time. They're very emotionally dry movies.
I feel like I'm missing something when I watch them. Like, I'm like, I guess this
I
is...
agree.
pretty good, but it's like everyone's like the Bourne Ultimate. Like when it came out, it's like whoa, and I'm like, I guess I didn't get it. I don't know.
On a technical level, I have immense respect for them. Both Supremacy and Ultimatum. A lot of people shit on Ultimatum, I think wrongfully. A lot of it comes down to it feeling like a retread of the second one. Like 2 and 3 feel very, very similar. I somewhat disagree. I feel they have a slightly different texture to them. And oddly enough, John Powell, again, a second time I'm mentioning him on this episode, he composed most of the music for the franchise. I think Jason Bourne, if memory serves, his name is attached to it, but in actuality, I think most of the music is attributed to the guy who did like the Batman Arkham games, and you can kind of tell. But John Powell's score for these movies is largely the appeal for me, honestly. So some of the best fucking action cues of their era. Some of the best chase music ever written. Some of the best mood building, tension building music out there. Really, really incredible instrumentation. Really cool stuff. And he recycled a lot of his content from Supremacy to Ultimatum, but the instrumentation is redone, and I would argue that they're different enough that I think of them as two separate thoughts, whereas I have an ongoing argument with a buddy of mine who, like, he's like, it's the same fucking shit. And I'm like, no, it's not. You're full of shit. but yeah, Supremacy and Ultimatum, I think I've rewatched Ultimatum more than Supremacy, but I have the same problem that you do. I continually feel that I'm missing something. I usually feel lost when I'm watching them, but from time to time there's these set piece moments in the franchise as a whole that are just like show-stopping stuff, where it's like the way this thing is like thrown into a wood chipper to fucking edit it really shouldn't work. And yet, every once in a while, not throughout the whole movie, but every once in a while, you get these nuggets of just absolute gold. Like the apartment fist fight in Ultimatum at the time, aside from the sound editing, which is absolutely hilarious, because I swear they take sound effects straight out of like GoldenEye for some of the hits in that. Yeah. It's like, could you not just like get out some celery or something like for your $100 million movie or whatever? But that fight sequence with Joey Ansa and Matt Damon is top tier for Hollywood productions of its day. And Supremacy, the car chase at the end with what's his face from the Lord of the Rings and whatnot, and Dredd. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Anyway, the car chase at the end of Supremacy is incredible. Like the editing on that and the ballsiness of some of the choreography of the car stuff, really fucking cool. And the music cue that plays over that sequence is incredible. But the movie is, as a whole, not nearly one of my favorite spy thrillers, not by a long shot. But some of the highlights of it are pretty up there for their era of stunt work.
Yeah, I need to go back and revisit those films because I may have only seen them like once or something. But yeah, they definitely didn't blow me away. But yeah, it's interesting that you kind of tied all those together as like it's the second one that kind of better represents everything. Certainly with Rambo, 100%. Like that's a clear example where the first one is the outlier.
Yeah, and then some, especially when we get into like the fifth one where it's like, I don't even know what the fuck we're doing anymore, guys. That movie had me so worried going in. I was like, for the love of God, like, just like, there's certain subjects that I don't, Stallone, I love you, but I don't know if you're qualified to touch on these topics.
Yeah.
And thankfully they kind of like, they don't go into it, but it ended up just being a trashy red box movie at the end of the day.
Basically.
It's like, I'm fine with that. Like,
could have been worse.
It could have been worse. It shouldn't have happened because Rambo, just John Rambo, whatever you want to call it, Rambo 4, I thought was an exceptional finale to a franchise. Like, that was kind of incredible, actually. Like, they came thundering back. like I don't think anybody expected that to hit as hard as it did. Mm-hmm. But I would have been very happy if they just ended it there, especially with the final shot of that one, where it's like, he's back on American soil, he's back in Arizona. Good for you, Johnny. Let that be the end of that character. But no, we have this epilogue chapter where he has to kill Mexico, literally all of Mexico.
Yeah. Well.
And then, spoiler alert, not die, despite what they were getting very, very close to doing with that character. It's like, can we just call it good now? Please.
I say give him another shot. Let's go one more time around the old neighborhood. Let's give him another chance.
John, we need you to go back to Vietnam again. It's like, why? I thought we're cool with them now. It's like, I don't know. We're out of ideas.
Yeah. They should have him just like go like on vacation there, and it just be like, just him like, realizing like, oh, okay, like, reconciling with everybody there and being like I apologize, and that could be interesting.
Yeah, it's surprise drama where it's like not a single punch or bullet fired in anger in this entire Rambo film.
So he goes
directed
there,
by Clint Eastwood or something.
Yeah. He goes there. He like meets the Vietnamese people. They bond. They connect. They come into a mutual understanding. And then on the plane ride back, the plane gets taken over by hijackers, and that's where, just from like Russian hijackers or something, like not even.
Well, no, you can't do that because I'm pretty sure that's where these movies are most profitable now.
Okay, yeah.
That's probably the target demographic.
Just in fake countries now.
I mean, yeah, Rambo in space. Yeah. something like that.
Yeah.
Hey, well, anyway, that's enough at me, Brad. You good for one more round, or you about tapped out?
I can go one more. Yeah, let me think here. Boy, I guess I will go with this one. Let's go with this one, which it is I don't necessarily say it's better than the first one, but I think it's the one that I come back to more. I think it is a little more rewatchable, and that is 28 Weeks Later. Which have you seen either of these films?
We did a review of 28 Days Later, but I have never seen 28 Weeks Later.
Oh, okay. Well, 28 Weeks Later, I don't think there's any cast carryover from the first one, I don't believe, but it is a sequel in that it is the same virus, and it is a different director. It's directed by Juan Carlos Fresnadillo. I'm trying to think. I feel like he's done some other stuff after this, but I can't think of it. But anyway,
I'll look it up while you're talking.
Yeah, I believe Danny Boyle is maybe just like a producer on here or something. I don't even know. But yeah, executive producer. Anyway, I do like the first one a lot, and I definitely think the first one, it's more iconic. It certainly gets points for, it was a pretty revolutionary zombie film at the time. But I really like 28 Weeks Later. A lot of it is partly because of the premise. Basically, it takes place, I think it's still in London, but it's like the city is sort of like on the up and up almost. And I it's been a while since I've watched it, but I think it's something like they're sort of like bringing people back into the city. Everything's going good, and it's like the first time where they're bringing some people back in, and then eventually somehow shit hits the fan, and this what was supposed to be a safe place crashes and burns, and we do follow a young brother and sister and their attempts to find their father, get out of the city, something like that. I can't remember. It's been a while since I've seen it, but it's a fun, pretty effective film, and I think it's, in a lot of ways, it is a little more high energy than the first one. I mean, the first one's pretty high energy, but I feel like from what I remember with this one is that like once the shit hits the fan, it's kind of all just one continuous, like, we've got to get out, we've got to go, and it kind of never lets up. There is a pretty iconic opening. Maybe you've seen it or know of it, but the opening is
we've lost control.
Yeah. Is that with the guy on the where he's running towards the water? I'm trying to.
Okay, I don't think I've seen that then. I've seen a clip of Idris Elba ordering people to just readily open fire into a crowd of people that are. It's like a mixed group of infected and non-infected people.
Yeah. See, I forgot Idris Elba was even in this. That's how long it's been since
it's been a minute since that movie came out.
Yeah. But no, I think it's a really fun sequel. It's kind of maybe leaning a little more into just like straight action compared to the horror of the original. But I do like it a fair bit. And you've got Jeremy Renner in here. There's a few other people.
Robert Carlyle, is he in there?
Yep. I think he's the father. Rose Byrne, Imogen Poots, who is the daughter in one of her early roles. It's a pretty fun little film. And I gotta say, I gotta give him props for at least so far, no 28 months later, because I think both films were pretty well received. I don't know box office wise how this one did. But kind of surprising that they didn't tap into that well again. But as of right now, I think that it was two very solid films. And I don't know, maybe the first one. I know a lot of people say this, but I do think that the final act, loses a little bit, at least for me. Everything in that military compound or whatever is maybe not my favorite. Whereas this one, I feel like it just kind of keeps on ramping up the tension until the very end.
Yeah, actually, that is something I would say about 28 Days Later is the military compound portion of the film is a little bit of a dip. The rest of it's phenomenal, but it's not a bad film by any means. I thoroughly enjoyed my time with it, but I seem to remember Kyle saying some good things about 28 Weeks Later, so I wouldn't be surprised if we end up reviewing it at some point, because I'd be curious to check it out, because I was happy enough with the first one. It's a solid premise. And surprisingly, kind of a packed cast by 2021 standards. In 2007, a lot of those names didn't really register, but nowadays it's like, wow, a lot of talent in this fucking zombie movie. But I looked up the director while you were talking, Juan Carlos Fresnadillo. He is Spanish, and he has very few credits. He did a Clive Owen movie called Intruders in 2011.
That might be what I was thinking of.
He was supposed to direct a remake of The Crow, but to date we have yet to get any remakes of The Crow, so I guess that just flittered away to nothing. And apparently he's attached to do a Sword in the Stone film, so yet another Arthurian story. Maybe somebody's looking at the box office returns on The Green Knight, and they're like, "Oh, we gotta get on the King Arthur train."
maybe, yeah. Well, that's a bummer.
I seem to recall hearing that King Arthur is like box office poison, though, like traditionally.
The Guy Ritchie film was a big dud. I know that.
Yeah, and I think Excalibur may have been a dud too. First Night probably was a dud too. I seem to remember reading that somewhere that traditionally, like, King Arthur films and the Clive Owen King Arthur movie, like, all of them kind of just don't do well in terms of box office returns, despite interest being generally fairly high.
I feel like people just actually deep down don't really give a shit about King Arthur. I mean, if I'm being honest with myself, like, it's not anything that, I mean, it's like, oh yeah, it's, kind of interesting, whatever, but like, as a movie, I don't really give a shit. Like, who cares?
See, I had a conversation of like a month ago, like around like a while back actually, when The Green Knight was coming out. Like, and I think I understand what the problem is. I think it's because Arthurian legend and lore is one of those things that everybody thinks they know a lot about, but most people don't know shit about it. They just think they do because King Arthur's ever present. Like, we all know the name, we all know a couple of the knights, we know there's a table, maybe it's round. It's like, and like over the course of this conversation, like I threw out a few details, and like the person on the other end of the conversation was like, I was not aware of that. And I was like, oh, so you mean I'm the King Arthur expert in the room? I don't know shit. Like, and they're like, I know even less than you. And I was like, oh, well, yeah, I think that's the problem. It's a thing that's familiar, but not actually known. And therefore, everybody feels a little bit like put off when they actually get immersed in the story. We're like, wow, I didn't know that was going to happen.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I'm definitely not a King Arthur head. I can say that for certain.
I mean, one of my favorite arcade games was Knights of the Round. I drew a fucking poster of it that you can't see it on the webcam, but like one of my favorite video games of all time. But yeah, I know a couple of things here and there about Arthurian legend and stuff, but I read The Green Knight when I was in college. So like I'm one of those guys. It's like, hey, I actually kind of know the story. Haven't seen the movie, but
you might be a King Arthur head.
I probably know like 2% more than your average American. Like maybe across the pond they know more than we do, but 28 weeks later, I would not be surprised if we end up doing an episode on it. Kind of funny, you said it's like more action oriented, like also Spanish Connection and Zombie Connection, Rec 2, like similar kind of situation where it's like a more aggressive approach to similar circumstances or something.
That's pretty fair to say. With Rec 2, you got it where it's all still the same night, same location. And this one, I did read while you were talking there. I did read the back of the Blu-ray. The premise is that the virus has been eliminated, so that's why they're bringing people back into the city. But then, of course, it's eliminated until somebody fucks it up. So then, but that's pretty good. That's a pretty fair comparison. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, Alien and Aliens, like it's a very, very familiar pivot point in a franchise where it's like, well, we had that suspenseful one. We had the lower budget, more restrained one. It's like, well, let's aggro this shit up. Yep. I mean, it's a winning formula, and I have Aliens right here. I'm not going to talk about it at length because it's fucking Aliens. Like, what else can we say? Check out the Catching Up on Cinema Masterclass on Aliens, i.e. last year's Masterclass month. So I suppose the pick is to me. What is it gonna be?
High pressure now.
High pressure. Well, I'm going to take the easy route and show you one of the ugliest Blu-rays on my shelf. But this also opens an adjacent conversation topic. So okay. This will be clean. Trust me, Brad. So I have here 4 film favorites Batman collection.
Oh boy.
I know how you hate these kinds of packages, Brad.
Now I gotta ask, how many discs are in that package?
Let us see here. There are 4 discs,
okay.
1 for each film.
All right,
that's
all
surprising,
right.
actually.
Hey, we're good. We're all good. That's totally fine.
Yeah, the girlfriend got me a Scott Adkins 2-pack, Ninja and Ninja 2: Shadow of a Tear, that is on 1 disc. Ooh. And I had. That's the only example of that I have in my collection. I did not willfully bring that into my home, Brad. That was a gift, but it was a shock to me. I was like, woman, there is only 1 disc in this box.
Hey, yeah, it happens.
Yet there are 2 films on the cover. What is this?
Yeah.
But of course, I'm referencing Batman Returns, which is technically, I think, the 3rd Batman theatrical feature, if you include the Adam West film from, I think, '66. But this is the 2nd Tim Burton Batman film, and what most people think of as the 2nd Batman film. Batman Returns is likely very well is my favorite superhero film. And it's also the one that kind of established for me this weird thing I've noticed with a lot of superhero movies. A lot of number 2 superhero movies tend to be my favorites. If memory serves, Brad, you're the guy who doesn't care much for Spider-Man 2, or is that Kyle?
It must be Kyle, because I like Spider-Man 2 quite a bit.
Okay, because Spider-Man 2 is by far my favorite Spider-Man film.
Yeah.
And Superman 2 is also my favorite Superman film. I actually have set aside the Richard Donner cut of Superman 2, which is an unusual situation, because this happens from time to time where I feel there's no perfect version of that film. Like Godzilla 1985 is one of the go-to examples I have, where it's like there's the international cut, meaning the one with American inserted scenes with American actors speaking English, as well as the Japanese footage dubbed in English. And then there's the original Japanese cut of the film. And the American one actually has a couple of tweaks here and there that I somewhat prefer. So if you like merged those two cuts of the film, like if you cut out all the English speaking actors and stuff, but retained some of the edits that the American version made, then you'd have like my idealized version of the movie. And the same is the case with Superman 2, where the Richard Donner cut, I like the concept of it, but the execution of it is unfortunately not especially fun to watch. Because like, do you know the story of it?
Yeah, the basics, yeah.
Yeah, but basically, folks at home, if you're not aware, Superman 2, Richard Donner was kicked off of production like partway through and replaced with Richard Lester, who is more of a comedic film director and a hired gun at that. He had no emotional connection to the characters of the franchise. He just did what the producers told him and then made it silly, which was not how the film started production. And the Richard Donner cut of the movie basically just excises all the goofy elements and then replaces it with Richard Donner's like preferred elements, but unfortunately had zero budget. So a lot of it comes across as just like unfinished special effects shots that are difficult to digest. Like you have to really bring a lot of your imagination to some of the shots in the finished product. But Batman Returns, though, far and away, it's probably my very favorite superhero movie. It's absolutely gorgeous top to bottom. Danny Elfman, bar none, I think it's his finest hour as a composer. The score for that film is tremendous. I've listened to it in isolation untold numbers of times. I think it's one of the finest scores ever composed. It's truly incredible stuff. And from a visual standpoint, production design is just like all the best aspects of Tim Burton, undiluted. Like this is very much like it feels like an auteur production, but given way too much money. Famously, it was like the movie that nobody expected to get in theaters. Where like none of the producers were happy with it. It's like this. I don't know what this horny mess is, but this is not going to sell Happy Meals. Yeah. But I saw it at a very early age. My family recorded it off the TV, complete with 90s commercial breaks and television edits, though. So some of the violence was removed. So I didn't actually see the whole movie until much later. But very, very special movie to me. But mostly I just wanted to talk about superhero stuff because also I have set aside here Captain America, the Winter Soldier, which is my favorite Captain America movie, and I think probably my favorite MCU movie. It just happens to be a number 2. And I also set aside Iron Man 2 just because it's the first Blu-ray I ever bought. Not because it's good. It's fine. Like a lot of people think it's awful. I think it's fine. Yeah. But it's just noteworthy as being the beginning of my Blu-ray.
Well, that calls some attention. That's worthy of pointing out.
Yeah. But how about you, Brad? Any connection to Batman Returns?
Oh yeah, I love Batman Returns. Definitely my favorite out of the that I don't want to say original because there's the Adam West one, but that group of 4, that 4 film pack, certainly
the 4 film favorite.
Yeah, and I would maybe make the argument that it's my favorite Batman movie. Overall, I mean, I do love The Dark Knight, even though it's actually that's I guess maybe I should say I think The Dark Knight did crack my top 100. I don't think I had Batman Returns on there, so I guess I gotta bite my words there. But it's up there. I do love it. I love Michelle Pfeiffer in it, Danny DeVito, and just how much focus is given to them. I think is pretty bold, and but I love it.
Yeah, it's kind of fascinating to think of it as. I want to say that it's actually just the Penguin's story. Like I got so fucking sick of all these clickbait articles being like, did you know that Avengers Infinity War's protagonist is actually Thanos? Like it's actually Thanos' story. He's the one with all the character development. It's like, no, I was not aware of that. I've never seen a fucking movie before. but Batman Returns, like there's a reason the opening sequence is the birth of the Penguin, and also part of the charm of the movie for me is like in retrospect, like looking over Tim Burton's early filmography. These days, I don't know what the fuck he's doing. Like, he's a bit of a disappointment these days. But like in the 90s, when his color palette was less diversified, when things were slightly more monochrome, he had this recurring element, much like a lot of very, very good directors have. Like, he had recurring themes throughout his stories. A lot of it had to do with outcasts, people who don't belong, people who are maybe a little bit lost or considered outright monsters. Like Edward Scissorhands is entirely that story, told seemingly from his own perspective. like if you just look at the positioning of that character in suburbia and whatnot, it's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure Tim Burton grew up like that. And even the Batman character, it's like, well, you know, I don't know that he has any super close affinity to the character. Like the idea of Bruce Wayne being, and in particular Michael Keaton's performance as Bruce Wayne, it's like he's fucking weird. Like he doesn't know how to talk to people. Like he's a very odd person. He doesn't fit in. And the same goes with Penguin, where it's like he's this weird outcast. He's this weird like subhuman creature that lashes out and is misunderstood by everyone, and he has a very tragic fate, even though he shows his true colors at the end as being a total fucking monster. but that's part of the charm of the movie, is it has some truly sick and twisted fucked up shit that you will never ever see in a blockbuster movie again after that, largely because of this movie. That's like, we're like, Warner Brothers is like, we're going to be very careful about shit like that going forward. Although I guess I have to eat my own hat there, because we have movies like Joker that apparently make all the money despite their subject matter being as grimdark as it fucking gets. But yeah, Batman Returns, can't say enough about it. I'm pretty sure it was like another one of those borderline 3-hour episodes for Kyle and I. But, yeah. That being said, Brad, do you want to wrap things up with a speed round here?
Yeah, sure. I'll just pull out a few here because I've got a giant stack. I won't go through them all. I will mention, you know, you were talking about that 4-pack. Listen, I got a gross one here, and you know, this is not highlighting the actual release here. Hostel, which I've got a Hostel 2-movie collection from Mill Creek, 1 disc. Real gross here. Real gross. But I actually, I've got a soft spot for both. I say both. I know there's a third one that's really bad. But the 2 Eli Roth Hostel movies I like quite a bit. I do think I like the first one better. But second one goes into some interesting directions, and I do like the idea of following a pair of guys who are going into the, you know, like the guys going in to do the torturing, I think is interesting. The sort of flip that happens with them is kind of lame and predictable, but I like both films. I've also got one that maybe you're going to pull out and mention. I'd be surprised if you wouldn't. The Raid 2, which is an amazing action film. Like you said, I mean, the kitchen fight is great. I mean, there's tons of great action sequences. It is long, but I definitely think it's better than the first one, me personally. I know some people like the first one better because it's a little tighter, but I think the choreography and everything is it's better in the second. We've got From Russia with Love, which let's see, last year pre-COVID, I was going through for some revisiting, some watching for the first time, all the Bond films. This one was a first-time watch. It really stood out to me. I really enjoyed it. Just like a really great spy film, and it was before things got a little too goofy. It was before like the James Bond like staples, I guess, were all there. So it does kind of feel like it's a bit of its own thing. But I thought there was a lot of fun sequences. I had a good time with it. And finally, I'll mention Psycho 2, which was surprisingly quite good. I've only seen it the one time. I should have revisited it. But, you know, you'd think Psycho 2, like, oh, this is going to be garbage. No, it was actually pretty solid. This one was not directed by Anthony Perkins. Richard Franklin directed this one. I know Anthony Perkins did at least one of either 3 or 4, or maybe both of them. I can't remember. But
I think it was 3.
That was his. Okay, yeah. But just the idea of, so he gets let out of the mental hospital, and he's trying to adjust to a normal life once again, but like the idea of his mother keeps creeping back in, and he keeps getting tempted to go down that same path. And I think it's a pretty well made film. And I do believe Quentin Tarantino has said that he prefers Psycho 2 over the original. So seems like a very Quentin Tarantino thing to say, but if you need a little bit of a push, there you go.
Holy shit, I wasn't aware of that.
Unless maybe I'm misremembering that, but I'm pretty sure I've read that before.
I mean, Tarantino's the kind of guy who puts quotes in his movies, pretending they're Bible quotes when in actuality they're taken from like Sonny Chiba movies.
Yeah.
So, I wouldn't put it past him to favor Psycho 2 over Psycho 1.
Yeah.
But actually, I did not pull the Raid 2 aside. Although I probably should have. I have mixed feelings about the movie because of its length. Actually, it is a phenomenal action film with some of the most mind-blowing, like, just action choreography, not just martial arts. Like, if you've ever seen the making of the car chase camera work, have you watched that, Brad?
No, I haven't. No.
So it involved somebody wearing a suit made of car seat cushions, handing a camera rig off from a moving vehicle into another camera, and then sliding into a specific position while wearing the bodysuit of the interior of a car to mask his presence in the vehicle. It's just like, how does one conceive of doing that? One,
yeah.
And then two, how does one actually execute that on the spot? But just the action design, like, that was the movie that like really made it clear that this director, not just as an action filmmaker, but just as a filmmaker, is one to watch. And also the dialogue scenes in that movie. There's actually like high fucking drama in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the dialogue sequences in that movie, it's very long takes, very, very heavy, emotional, almost like borderline melodramatic sequences. Very supremely well acted. Foreign language, be damned. But the length of the movie is what prevents me from putting it on. It's one of those movies that I come back to constantly, but it's in very similar to like the Bourne movies. It's in highlight form.
Yeah.
I've watched the whole movie front to back exactly one time in the theater though.
Okay.
That was cool.
Yeah.
I got to do that with my brother, and that was an experience. I dragged him to the theater. I was like, I know you don't know what the fuck this is, but trust me, it's gonna be a ride.
Yeah.
and it was phenomenal. But okay, so for my speed round here, as is customary, I have a big old stack here. I go overboard with these things, so bear with me here. I'll get the quick ones out of the way right off the bat. So we have a bunch of gimmies here, a bunch of stuff that's like, if you're gonna be talking about number twos, why wouldn't you talk about that? So these are things that's like, I can just hold up the fucking case and we don't even have to talk about it. So I have Terminator Anthology. I don't actually own Genesis or Dark Fate.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that I will, because I don't know, man. Like Genesis was real fucking bad.
Yeah.
Dark Fate was passable, but deeply unmemorable, and towards the end of it I was just so fucking checked out. Like I just could not be bothered to care. Terminator has fallen off real fucking hard, but Terminator 2 Judgment Day, that was another nearly 3-hour episode of Catching Up on Cinema. Go check it out if you're interested to hear what I have to say about it.
But I mean,
one of the best sequels ever made.
Even including Terminator falling off real hard. I mean, the transfer on the 4K, supervised by James Cameron. Oh, real bad. Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that.
In fact, when I believe it's Second Sight is putting it out on 4K as like was this going to be the 30th anniversary edition? So they're putting out another 4K, and they announced on Facebook it's the same transfer as the current 4K, just with new extras and packaging. And like all the Facebook like reactions were laughing emoji, sad emoji, mad emoji. Like, people were pissed.
I think it was you who told me that the 4K for Judgment Day was sus, such that I'm actually very glad I still just have this.
Yeah.
This is one through salvation, basically. I really hate what they did with the sound on Terminator 1. They changed all the gun sounds, and it, like, my child brain, like, when I originally saw Terminator, I was like, that's That's not what Kyle Reese's shotgun sounds like. That's wrong. Like, something is amiss. I hate when that shit happens. But yeah, Terminator 2 Judgment Day, that's a no-brainer. It's one of the best number 2s in cinema history, like, indisputably. Spider-Man 2, we already talked about it. Iron Man 2, already mentioned it. First Blu-ray I ever bought. I don't have particularly fond feelings for it. However, I will defend it when people shit all over it, because they do that, Brad. I'm not sure if you're aware of that, but Iron Man 2 is the punching bag of the MCU in a lot of ways. And then Captain America Winter Soldier. Kyle finally watched that. He actually watched the entire MCU catalog very recently. Like, he took it upon himself to do that. I was like well done, good. Sir.
That's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot, man. I don't think he had anything to say about that, because he... Are you in the same camp, Brad? Do you hate Captain America? Do you hate America?
Do I hate Captain America? No, I don't hate Captain America, but controversial, I will say. I'm not the biggest fan of his movies, I gotta say.
Okay.
I'm in the... I know everybody says The Winter Soldier is like one of the best MCU movies, and I would say it's bottom tier for me, unfortunately.
Bottom tier.
Yeah.
God damn.
Yeah. Well, maybe not bottom tier, but bottom half. Let's not go too crazy.
I mean, there's a lot of them, so that's fair. But I was about to say bottom tier.
Yeah,
that's
it's
saying
not like
a lot.
the worst one. No, it's not.
Yeah, Thor: The Dark World and the Incredible Hulk. Yeah, it's on the same tier as that. Yeah, fuck off with that. but yeah, I don't think Kyle had a damn thing to say about it, because he famously has nothing to say about Superman or Captain America. He just has no time for Boy Scouts.
Yeah.
he is very much a Han Solo guy. Like, Luke Skywalker, piss off.
That's fair.
Han
that's
Solo,
fair.
yeah. Alien Anthology, one of the better box sets of recent memory.
So good.
Aliens, of course. Again, James Cameron, one of the best number 2s in cinema history. One of my very favorite films in history, like one of the most important cinematic experiences of my youth. Superman 2, the Richard Donner cut, already mentioned it. Now we can get into the real shit. So I have a British Blu-ray box set of the Steven Seagal collection, which includes Under Siege 2, which I'm not positive which came first, but Terminator 2, Aliens, and Under Siege 2 were the first R-rated movies I ever saw in my life. So Under Siege 2, strictly because it was one of the first R-rated movies I ever saw, has a special place in my heart. It's not one of the better Steven Seagal movies out there. In fact, there's like one shot of him where he looks totally fucking checked out. Where it's like, I'm pretty sure he didn't know the camera was running right then. But Creed 2 on 4K, which, again, I've already talked at length about the Rocky franchise, one of my very favorite film franchises, one of the most special ones to me personally, because my dad's from Philly, and these movies were kind of how we bonded in my youth. But Creed 2 holds the distinction of being kind of an amazing sequel. Like, if you really break it down, like, as a film, it has its issues here and there. It's not a perfect film, but as a franchise film, it's kind of fucking spectacular, because it like, the story comes together very cleanly. It's emotionally engaging in unexpected ways. It is so much better than it has to be. And not only that, within the boundaries of the runtime of just this one sequel, they somehow pay homage to, like, almost all of the Rocky sequels within one sequel. So it kind of feels like setting the stage for a final chapter, like a Creed 3, where they can actually just do something completely different. So as soon as my brother and I walked out of the theater for this one, we were both just like, wow, like, that was really cool. Like, somehow they managed to, like, cover all the ground that it took 5 Rocky sequels to cover in one film. And now it's like, I don't know where they're going, but I'm excited for it regardless. Like, my theory, Brad, and I'm just going to put it out there right now, is that I think there's going to be a time jump. Like, I think they're going to push Adonis Creed's story forward a few years, and he's going to be an older Adonis Creed next time we see him.
I can see that.
As far as I know, Michael B. Jordan's directing this
that's
next
right.
one. So following the same path as laid down by Sylvester Stallone. Go from being the guy in front of the camera to now both in front of and behind. So very, very excited for Creed 3. But I also have Legend of the Drunken Master, which was, I think, our first collaboration, Brad?
No, we'd done at least 1 or 2 episodes before then, I believe.
Was it Uncut Gems?
Yeah, that was the first one, yeah.
Yeah, Brad had me on his show, Cinema Speak, to review Legend of the Drunken Master, also known as Drunken Master 2. If you ask me, one of Jackie Chan's better films, if probably his best from the 90s for sure, but truly an exceptional Jackie Chan movie by any standard. I mentioned this earlier. This is where the Guyver kick comes from. Guyver 2. The subtitle's missing. It just says Guyver 2. It's supposed to be Guyver 2 Dark Hero. This is based on a manga, but this is a live-action film done Power Rangers style. In fact, choreographed and shot by a lot of people who worked on Power Rangers very shortly after the release of this film. This movie is goofy. It features David Hayter, a.k.a. the voice of Solid Snake, in the lead role. It is unexpectedly gory. Such that it actually lives up to the standards set by the very, very violent manga. One of the first manga I ever read when I was a very small boy. Really incredible makeup effects, animatronics and stuff. Lots of goopy creatures and lots of kung fu fighting and bloodletting. This movie, I wrote a blog entry about this a long time ago. One of the best overkills in cinematic history, where it's like, I don't know if you know this, Brad, but the Simpsons clip, stop, he's already dead.
Yeah.
It's that. It's like, dude, you killed him 5 times before he hit the ground.
Yeah.
like, was that all necessary? Not an amazing action movie by any standard, but I actually have like a really strong affinity to the franchise as a whole. And the martial arts work, despite the suits and stuff, like the very heavy like prosthetics and whatnot, really exceptional stuff for its era.
Nice.
Really extensive use of wire work in the mid-90s when we in the States weren't really doing that just yet. So it's kind of a look into the future, actually. It's an interesting little movie. And then I have a Japanese import DVD of Kamen Rider The Next, which is part of the Kamen Rider franchise, Masked Rider, if you will. This is the second live-action film they made for the franchise. It's directed by a former porn director. The narrative is absolutely fucking busted. But whenever it comes down to people in rubber suits kicking each other, it's pretty fucking cool. And that's it, I guess.
All right.
For our number 2s.
Yeah. Hey, good selection. Good mix.
Yeah, that was a good selection of sequels. But before we go, though, Brad, thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah.
It's always a pleasure to have you on the show. Always a lot of fun looking over your collection. It's always really neat to see like how we can compare notes and find that like we all have different stuff to offer. Everything is like the things that are special to us are not necessarily special to other people. So it's always fun to see what's special to you. But before we go, you want to let the folks at home know where they can find you and your podcast?
Yeah, it's the Cinema Speak podcast, so you can find us on any podcast platform. Just search for Cinema Speak. We're on Twitter at The Cinema Speak, on Instagram, Cinema Speak Podcast. You can find us on YouTube under Cinema Speak, and you can find us on the web at cinemaspeak.libsyn.com.
Very well said, Brad. Not like me botching the intro before we start. But yeah, thanks for that. And folks at home, if you'd like to catch up on any of our Catching Up on Cinema content, you can find all of that collected on our website at CatchingUpOnCinema.com. We also have a couple of social media accounts in the form of an Instagram at CatchingUpOnCinema, as well as a Twitter at CatchingCinema. So feel free to hit me up at either of those. And the show is available on pretty much any podcasting platform you can imagine, including Cephalopod. So fucking Google it. But that being said, thank you so much for listening, and we will catch you next time.